here. So we are meeting remotely based on the COVID protocols and the county emergency, state of emergency that's been declared in our policy. When the clerk calls the roll, please indicate the township and the county in which you are located, as well as whether you are present. Please call the roll.
Hathaway,
Present, Scio Township, Washtenaw County.
Palmer, still absent. Flintoft, here, Scio Township, Washtenaw County. Courteau is absent tonight. Jerome,
Here, Scio Township, Washtenaw County.
Knol,
Here, Scio Township, Washtenaw County.
Vogel.
Here, Scio Township, Washtenaw County.
Great, we have quorum.
Great. All right, the next item is adoption of the agenda, and I have a couple of changes that I would like, and I will list these in the order that they appear on the agenda and then explain the basis for the changes. So the first is to remove item I-1, possible action to adopt Freedom of Information Act, FOIA policy and procedures, and appoint FOIA coordinator. The second change is to remove item J2, possible action, rules of order, adoption of rules for meeting agendas. And the third change is to add to new business, a new item, J6, retention of video recordings for Board of Trustee meetings. And here's the explanation. So for item I-1, in reading through the two resolutions that are the action items for I-1, I found that there are some issues that need further work and clarification. For example, the FOIA procedures and guidelines and the public summary of FOIA procedures and guidelines offer two contradictory methods for appealing an excessive fee. In the resolution appointing the clerk as FOIA coordinator, the ability to delegate that authority is broad and it should be specific. And rather than try to rewrite these documents during the meeting, they should be sent back for revisions so that they are ready for Board of Trustee consideration. Item J2, this rule of order was placed on this agenda as an action item over my objection. The basis for my objection is that to act on this item is a piecemeal approach to rules of order in isolation from the larger discussion of rules of order. We have a special Board of Trustees meeting scheduled for Monday, June 7th for the purpose of possible action on rules of order. That is the time and the context for consideration of this proposal. And then item J6, this is an opportunity to establish a simple policy to preserve and make available the video recordings of Board of Trustees meetings, and I can explain it further when we get to that item on the agenda. So those are my proposed changes. Is there a second or support for those changes?
I have a question about your proposed changes.
Well, can we first see if there's a support for the changes and then we can have discussion?
Okay.
Is there support for those changes?
I'll support.
Support from Vogel. Trustee Knol, what is your question?
Did you or Jessica request review by our township attorney for either of these items that you're proposing we remove from the agenda?
Yes, the FOIA item has been, I presented it to the board on April 27th.
Right.
It's been reviewed by the township attorney. I've discussed it with Will. He said he had a question, that's why he removed it from the May 11th agenda. We talked about that question, we made the change. You know, I don't strongly object, but I would, on that one, Will, I would suggest that over these 4 weeks, I wish you would have read and raised any questions prior to right now.
Well,
What's that?
no, go ahead. Sorry, it's not a dialogue. You go ahead.
No, I mean it. It's just, and I would just notice these, the FOIA item is probably the least controversial item we could have. It's been out of date for 6 years. It's just something our attorney has been asking us to update. On the addition of the retention of video recordings, I'd be happy to have that discussion. I would say, I think you're making an issue out of, I'm not sure what. Jim Murdy came in and relayed some of your concerns to me today, and they don't make any sense to me. So I wish you would bring this up to me privately. And there's also a legal question with Zoom. They are a permanent record, and so we keep them permanently, but the law is evolving. So I would want legal opinion before we decide on a policy. So again, some preparation would be helpful to move the board forward. But if you want to have an open-ended, uninformed conversation at the end of tonight's meeting, we can. I would prefer not to do it that way. And on J2, I said 2 weeks ago, with the fiasco of the May 11th agenda creation, I am sick and tired. We do everybody a disservice by getting these agendas out so late, Will. We have worked together, and I'm asking for the board's help on some simple rules, put some standards in place. They are 4 points. You've read them. Our attorney has approved them. He also approved the FOIA. They are simple. They're for discussion and possible action. On Friday, when we finalized the agenda, you had not yet called the special meeting. You called the special meeting about 2 hours ago when you sent us an email and declared the date. So I just am asking that you be these rules of order I'm insisting on. It was never like this with Jack. All of this last minute stuff has to stop, and I'm asking for the board's help to impose some standards on Will and me so that we can meet those standards, whatever it is the board determines it should be. But this is about getting the agenda and packets out in a reasonable time.
Are there any other comments before we vote? Trustee Jerome.
Well, I don't want to get off topic, but I want to make a couple more changes. I have some amendments I'd also like to make to the consent agenda. I don't know if you want to do that as 2 separate motions, that's fine. The one thing I would say, and I know we're going to get it when we get to the minutes, and I had suggested it last meeting, I do think that we need to, and it's sort of off topic, sort of on topic, in that I support actually having a special meeting for the rules. I absolutely 100% agree about the agenda, and I made that point at the last meeting. I would also like to make sure that there's rules and conduct discussed about the Board of Trustees meeting in general. I would like to have further discussion about the clarification of minutes and the capture of public comment, which I know we had requested have a summarization, but it's difficult to have 3 minutes summarized in 8 words, as well as the inclusion of correspondence. So I 100% am in agreement of the need for this and wanting to have some regularity and rules applied to the agenda and all the other facets of these meetings. I do think it would be better served in a special meeting myself. So that's just commentary. I'll leave it at that. And I don't know how well you want to take my suggested changes for the consent agenda. If you want to take that as a separate motion, that's fine.
I think we probably should do it as a separate motion. And I want to just point out that I'm getting attempted calls from the treasurer. I don't know if that's because she's having difficulty getting into the meeting.
Oh, here she is. Thank you, Will. Sorry, we've got 41 people on here, so I have to scroll down. And I want to say, Alec, I support all of this. We've talked about rules for a while. I gave the background in the item, and I am supportive of this. But honestly, I need the board's help prior to our next meeting to put a standard in place. We have tried to impose the standards. They have not worked. I'm asking for the board's help on just this point, and they can even be interim before our next more robust conversation about it.
Trustee Vogel,
I will simply say how we choose to work together, what norms, rules of engagement, whatever we're going to call them, is something we have to agree to collaboratively.
Mhm.
This unilaterally, we're going to do it this way. Here's a resolution. Here's a requirement. Here's a mandate. It's got to stop.
Mhm.
We are 7 individuals. We need to agree on how we're going to work together. And that's why we're going to set up a special meeting. I support getting it off the agenda and agree collectively on how we're going to do it.
Trustee Knol,
I agree that the unilateral declarations need to stop. And I'm concerned about the unilateral declarations of these 2 special meetings. I have conflicts with both of them. I emailed you today, Will. I was informed of them yesterday, and I'm hoping we'll have the opportunity to discuss that later. Also, I want to mention I have some changes that I too will be proposing to the agenda when everyone else is done.
Oh my goodness.
okay.
Yep. Oh, goodness.
Right. That's, if everyone's had a turn commenting, Treasurer Palmer, did you, all right, yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
I was trying. I was here before you started.
Oh, I'm sorry, Donna. My
Anyway.
apologies.
Anyway, we got it. That's okay. I support Will's motion. I've been able to hear. And I agree, let's get it off. Let's sit down at a special meeting and get this stuff all worked out, please.
At a special meeting that everyone can attend, please.
Of course, we always have tried to make sure that happened.
We used to.
We always have tried.
okay. The question is on amending the agenda to remove items I1 and item J2 and to add item J6. Please call the roll.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoft, no. Jerome,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Palmer.
Oh,
Palmer, sorry, I went out of order.
okay. I did already.
I'm sorry, Knol,
No.
no. I clearly don't have my checklist in front of us, which I will get
It's
momentarily.
all right to switch up the order. We can all,
I know, well, honestly, it's
We get
something
so
I've been
stuck
meaning
on
to
it.
do, you know,
Yeah.
because I don't always want the same order, but with Zoom, it's just crazy making.
I shouldn't vote twice, Alex. That's not
I
good,
don't disagree with that. Usually I go across the tiles at the top of my screen.
right?
Okay. Trustee Jerome, you had another change that you were proposing?
Yes, I have just 3 quick questions, but I'm going to have to pull them off the consent agenda in order to get that information. I'd like to pull the stilt grass off, the payment of bills, and the deputy clerk. And hopefully we can deal with them very quickly.
So that's items which, payment
On
of
the
the
consent agenda, that is H1, H2, and H7.
Okay, so that would move them to new business, I believe. Is there a second? Is there a second or support for that?
I'll second.
Or
Okay, support. Is there any comment? There's no comment. Please call the roll.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoft, yes. Jerome,
Yes.
Knol,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
motion passes.
Trustee Knol, you had additional changes you wanted to propose?
Yep. So I would like to pull consent agenda item H6 off of the agenda. Off the consent agenda.
Okay, so that would move that also to new business.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else? Is that it? Okay. Are there any
I'll
comments?
support if you want to make it to.
Okay, so moved by Knol, support by Jerome. Please call the roll.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoft, yes. Jerome,
Yes.
Knol,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes. Am I unmuted?
motion. Yes, you are. Motion passes.
Are there any further changes to the agenda? In that case, would someone like to move the agenda as amended?
So move.
Moved by Palmer,
Support.
support by Jerome. Please call the roll.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoft, yes. Jerome,
Yes.
Knol,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
agenda adopted.
Okay, the next item is approval of the minutes. We have minutes from the meeting of April 27th, and we have minutes from the meeting of May 11th. Oh, Trustee Jerome?
Well, I'd like to sort of second what I mentioned earlier. I would support tabling the approval of these minutes until we have had the opportunity for our rules meeting so that we can have absolute clarity on the inclusion of correspondence, public comment, agendas, so that there is absolutely no, we created a bit of an issue when we asked for a summarization of public comment, but that is a very difficult task and has in some cases been created some inconsistencies with what has been captured. Unfortunately, it's hard, as I say, 3 minutes is hard to capture in 8 to 10 words, and I completely understand that. But I would like to have all of those things worked out prior to any approval of the minutes so that we can be absolute in what is included and not included in those past two.
So there's a motion to table. Is there support?
I have a general question. He's proposing changing something after the fact. So at the time that these minutes have
I'm
been,
not proposing to change the minutes. I'm proposing to change, we changed the minutes.
Oops, you're muted.
I know, I said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Kathy was talking, so go ahead.
that's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, what I was saying is I'm not proposing to change the minutes. I'm proposing to make sure that, because we have the ability to change them. That's what an approval of minutes is. We have the ability to change them up until the minute that they are approved.
Right.
So we have the ability to go in and make sure that things are captured in the fashion and that we required them to be. For instance, when there was correspondence, some correspondence came in, and this is one of the things that I would like to tackle during the rules meeting, is when it comes in and which packet is included in it.
Exactly.
The correspondence that is an answer to the correspondence that's received by the township. And also, I think we need to have an agreement on the actual public comment portion of it and how it was captured. And I know that's difficult. As I say, I'm totally understanding the difficulties of it, but I do think it's very important that we're absolute in how we do that and what we're trying to accomplish with it for the benefit of the public and for the benefit of us as a record of our meeting. So I'm not suggesting that we go in and add things. I'm just simply saying we need to clarify what we include.
Is there support for the tabling motion? Support from Palmer. Is there further comment? Please call. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see
Yeah,
it.
I would just, Alec, I hear what you're saying, and I support having a conversation about structurally how we want the minutes to be, or, public comment to read. That all makes sense. I would just caution us that, if these minutes, as long as these minutes are not approved, we should just look through and just make sure there's nothing related to planning or zoning or anything else that needs to be approved. So I just would say, I don't know. I hear the problem. I don't think this is the right solution. I would say if there's particular things that you would want to change on these minutes, Alec, that we would change them now. I hear the, broader thing to address, but I would just caution us against not approving, discussing or approving what's before us. We've got the phase 3 contract, a lot of things on here. So I just don't want to inadvertently create some problems for ourselves by not finalizing the actions by approving these minutes. Again, it would be good to have Jim here if we're going to get into this sort of stuff.
Trustee Vogel?
Am I unmuted? I'm never quite sure.
Yep.
I am. Good. 2 thoughts. I think I agree with what you're saying, Jessica. There is some urgency because we have significant contract arrangements, et cetera. I think that's why it's important to prioritize this as the first of the 2 working sessions. I am aware that the previous board went for a very prolonged period of time without minutes approved and in the public record. So for us to have 2, there is significant precedent set. We need to come to agreements and get these minutes approved per those agreements on how we are going to work together, minutes, agendas, et cetera. So I support the deferral.
Other comments? Please call the roll. This is on the motion to table the minutes from the 2 meetings.
So motion to table the 427 and the 511 board minutes.
Correct.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoft, no. Jerome,
Yes.
Knol,
No.
Vogel,
Yes.
motion passes 4-2.
Next item is communications to the Board of Trustees.
Will,
Yes.
I wanted to make a brief remark on this, a refresher on the purpose of this standing item. The purpose of this agenda item is to include all of the substantive communications the board has received. And I'm raising this because I know Alec and you will have both proposed changing it. I do want to say that the purpose of putting this in the packet is to allow members of the public to have their input entered into the public record, similar to public comment, like a written form of public comment. It also ensures that all board members have read it to consider the public input. So they can reach out to an individual resident, can propose an agenda item from it, or other ways of addressing resident concerns. It's been suggested that I begin interfiling communications from individual board members back into the file. I would recommend against that, and instead that if any of those communications are significant, to put them in a different part of the agenda or a different report or something. This file, it's important that it remains uncurated, unedited, and as complete as possible. People have a right to criticize the government, right to free speech, and this file is that. It has been unedited and uncurated, and I would strongly recommend, in the interest of preserving that First Amendment space, that we keep it so. I do think if members of the board have sent a communication to a resident you think is significant, it should go in another part of the agenda, as Will did in the supervisor's report, or if the intention is to convey how responsive the board is to residents, then we should develop some sort of meaningful measure on which to regularly report. Always, typically, members of the board, you've all seen these ahead of time, except for 1 or 2 that might come in late just to me to share with the board. And again, if anybody receives a communication where it says, maybe it's just sent to one of you, but it's clearly intended for the board, please forward to me for inclusion.
Trustee Jerome.
I appreciate those comments, and hopefully we can tackle it at the rules meeting. I just want to make for absolutely clear that in no way whatsoever was anyone suggesting that these should be edited and or curated. It was simply having some additional information, and perhaps that's better served in a different area. But I just want to be absolutely clear. No one is suggesting editing or curating the correspondence.
Yes, I know you had it, Alec. Thank you for that. I just want to be clear for the public, because there's being questions of, is this complete? And yes, it is complete as we can make it in these 2-week chunks. So that's that.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comment. This is the time for members of the public to speak for up to 3 minutes on any matter under the purview of the Board of Trustees, including any items on this agenda. Later throughout the meeting, the supervisor will ask for public comment on each item on this agenda for possible action. If your public comment is on a possible action item, then you may comment later when that item is discussed by the board, or if you prefer, you may speak on that action item now. I ask that you raise your Zoom hand to be recognized. Board of Trustees members may use either their Zoom hand or raise their actual hand. The latter is usually easier for me to see. Obviously, Board of Trustees members aren't speaking during public comments. Trustee Knol has agreed to serve as timekeeper. She will announce when there is 30 seconds remaining and then time up when the 3 minutes are up. And out of fairness, please stop speaking when your time is up. I would ask that no one be interrupted during his or her comments. All remarks should be addressed to the moderator and not to any other individual. Members of the public will be given one opportunity to address the Board of Trustees on any one issue. Public comments are not an opportunity for back and forth dialogue. However, at their conclusion, a member of the Board of Trustees may ask for recognition from the moderator to respond to a question of fact. Although we cannot help but have some repetition, please try to avoid reiterating the same points which were made by previous speakers. And please do not involve personalities. Be as factual as possible. And to the trustees, I would add the reminder that we too should avoid personalizing our comments or ascribing motives to others. We are responsible for listening respectfully. That means our facial expressions and body language should not communicate either agreement or disagreement with what other speakers are saying, and neither should we make sounds or speak to show support or opposition to others' comments. When we are in roll call votes, it is time to say either yes or no. The addition of further comments is not appropriate when the vote is underway. With that, are there members of the public who would like to comment?
Please raise your Zoom hand. We'll start with Pat Stein, followed by Pam Boyd. Pat Stein.
Good evening. It truly is me tonight, not Bill. So listen, the last meeting on May 11th was extremely long, 4 hours. It was a very long time. And I'm concerned about the board's health. Remaining in your seats all those hours, can't help but be concerned with blood clots and DVTs and what have you. As a matter of fact, I understand the local clinics and urgent cares, in addition to asking patients if they've done any lengthy travel, they say, have you attended a Scio Township board meeting? So the other thing I wanted to say was I did read the resignation letter for David Reed. Now, I don't know about you, but when someone who has given so much to Scio Township for so long and in so many capacities, for someone like that to resign from all and everything Scio really raises a red flag to me. I feel, well, to borrow my granddaughter's terms, I feel we are doomed. So please take into account all that he said and please make any necessary changes so we can move forward. So I want to talk about the meeting on May 11th. After, as you all recall, I'm going to go through some steps. I'm sorry if I'm repeating what already happened, but I'm trying to make a point. At the meeting on May 11th, Diane Benson described the two management models, the Township Administrator model and the shared governance model. Supervisor Hathaway facilitated a discussion among the board members. This was followed by a motion by Trustee Palmer and supported by Trustee Vogel to adopt the Township Administrator model. Excuse me. At this point, the public was invited to voice their comments, of which there were many. Also, almost all were opposed or concerned with the administrator model, also referred to as the manager model. Once all the public comments were heard, Supervisor Hathaway called for a vote and Trustee Palmer's motion passed. The point I'm trying to make by listing these sequences is that the order of business is usually, here, a motion was already tabled after the board discussed and before the public comment. Past practice, if I recall correctly, was the comments would be heard and then a motion would be put on the table. So the question I have is, oh my goodness, okay. Well, the question I have is, do you really care what the public has to say? Do their comments really make a difference? Because if they did, I think that at the end of the public discussion, public comments, there should have been a motion to say, well, considering how the public reacts, maybe we should table this for another meeting or have further discussion. That's my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. Next up is Pam Boyd.
Hi, Pam Boyd, 517 Linden Lane. I'm going to use my comment time today not to discuss the multiple issues with the board that's on the table. And oh my gosh, please keep the resident comments in, because the comments I'm about to tell you are, we had a tragedy that was avoided. And Jessica, I will send you this so that it can be posted in the next packet. Dear neighbors, an attempted child abduction happened on Adrienne Lane last Thursday afternoon. A child coming home from school found an unknown male sitting in a silver Nissan SUV well into her driveway. This unknown male rolled down his window and flagged her to come over to the car. She ran into her house. Again, it was a silver Nissan SUV with no other known markings. The police were called and a report was filed. Previously this spring, this homeowner had found an older black BMW with a 30-ish white male with a beard sitting in her driveway near her garage. It left without incident. Later, she and the daughter saw the same vehicle male in her driveway as she was arriving home. It quickly backed out and sped off, with her losing sight of it on Pratt Road. Again, a 30-ish white male with a beard and an older black BMW. Another neighbor next door around the same time frame noticed a red car parked near the child's home. She took a picture and has the license plate. The family's been told by the police that they will have extra patrolling in the neighborhood over the next couple of days. If you see either of these two vehicles on your street, please call 911, or if you see a vehicle that looks suspicious, it wouldn't hurt to take a picture of it. Please share this with your neighbors. So this was an email I sent to my neighborhood. And I've had correspondence back from another neighbor who said she too saw these vehicles on a different street or on the same street, and she thought that they looked suspicious. So this is what I'm using my public comment on, because I'm trying to get the word out to all the neighborhoods. This could happen in your neighborhood too. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pam. Glad everybody's okay. Next up is Peter Davis, followed by Andrea Streeter. Peter?
I live at 3225 North Wagner Road, and my law office is also in Scio Township at 107 April Drive. I don't want to be cut off at 3 minutes, and I have a lot of things to say, and I'm preparing a longer paper to submit to the Township Board, which sets forth my ideas on township governance based upon my experience as a lawyer and my experience as a trustee of Ann Arbor Township for 8 years. It's a charter township. And I want to say one thing at the beginning, though, and that is I think that I've listened carefully to your discussions on the agenda. I think by statute, the township clerk is vested with the authority to prepare the agenda. It should be the job entirely of the township clerk. And I trust our township clerk to be faithful to her obligation to do that. And I'll give you the citation to that statute later when I didn't think that was going to come up today, but I think it's important that it be done. And so we don't have all this discussion about what should be on the agenda, what should come off, what should be preserved. And I think that if the township clerk does her job, as I expect she will, there should be no difficulty at all in having an agenda that works well for the board and for the public who watch this. I'm reading a book right now dealing with tyranny. One of the first things it says, and it's a fact, is that we've all noticed in the last year, especially, the decline in democracy around the world and the rise in authoritarianism. And I'm thinking I'm seeing this at the township level, and that's what I want to address in the longer document that I'm going to be preparing. That's all I have right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Next up is Andrea Streeter. If anybody else would like to speak, please raise your Zoom hand. Andrea? Andrea Streeter? Andrea, I will come back to you. Oh,
Okay.
here you are, Andrea. Andrea.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just got my message to unmute. I beg your pardon. Good evening. My name is Andrea Streeter. I reside at 6793 Dexter Ann Arbor Road. I was in Zoom attendance last night at the Planning Commission meeting. However, my computer was not working. So I do not know at this point on item number L2 on the agenda, which is the possible action fireworks permit application for Heron Farm at 6620 Dexter Ann Arbor Road. I am unfamiliar with the fact that this application was submitted. I have no idea, frankly, if that became public knowledge. I am curious as to know if this is in regard to the possible permit that is being requested by Heron Farm to have the party barns, or if this is specific to the 4th of July fireworks that the owner has had, not last year, but 3 consecutive years prior on the 4th of July. I want to just make comment, being that my home is almost adjacent to this property. And when he has had these fireworks, granted, they are gorgeous, they are lovely, they are beautiful. However, he has set them off towards the front of the property, and I have had sparks falling in my yard. The neighbor across the road has had them falling on his roof. I have huge pine trees at the front of my property that could have easily caught fire. And my concern is that if this permit is granted, that there should very well be a plan submitted as to where this is going to be taking place on his property. I am opposed to having them at all, frankly, because I feel it is a fire hazard. Granted, he has a large open spaces there with the amount of acreage that he owns, but it is very hilly. There are residences now all the way around, not towards the river or the train tracks, but over on the one side across Dexter Ann Arbor, over into the woods. There are homes in the woods back adjacent to the back property. And I am very opposed to this fireworks permit. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Andrea. Next up is Jillian Carey, followed by Carrie Letke. Jillian? Yes, hi, Jillian. Thank you, Jillian. Next up is Carrie Letke. Carrie?
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Carrie.
Thank you for listening to our comments. And yes, hello. I just really want to use my time tonight to thank David Reed for all his work. That was a very disappointing and very saddening letter, knowing that this is how he needs to leave the township after all he's done. I feel for him, I respect him, and I hope that we can take a lot of the things that he said to heart. I'm just concerned, and this is not criticism, why are you all having such a hard time with rules, regulations, and working together? I see animosity, I see bitterness. We all have said we want to move Scio Township forward. You all ran on that platform. An administrative model is not moving forward, it's going back to the old standard. There's a governance, there's checks and balances, there's a way to make this work where you do listen to us, and after we speak, you don't vote right away and go against what everyone said. Everyone that attends these meetings and takes their evenings away from their family to sit here, take notes, listen to you, and discuss with other residents on how we can try to make change when you're the ones that are supposed to make the changes. The changes aren't happening. So if we can do a better way of helping you, and if we can find a better way, I respect that you're working on a better way, and I hear that you have plans and committees to do so, but that's what all we hear. We don't see anything. We're not actually seeing things moving forward. So if there's any way we as residents can help you do that, please let us know. But these meetings are exhausting. We see the exhaustion in your face by the end of the 2 hours, sometimes 4 hours, that we as residents, unpaid, following you all, are sitting on these meetings and having to converse on these. So again, if there's some way we can bring the township together, have a little more transparency, we appreciate the work you're doing. This is not criticism. This is, you said we're going to move together forward, and we're not seeing that right now. I want to help you do that as well. So please let us know as residents and as a community how we can make this all work. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Next up, we have one more hand, Mary Gillis. Mary?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Mary.
Hi. My name is Mary Gillis. I live in Touchstone Co-housing, and I'm also the deputy clerk and the newsletter editor here in Scio Township. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. Speaking today as a fellow resident rather than as an employee. I'm here to say that the public comment aspect of the board meetings is broken and ought to be fixed. Public comment is meant to function as a safety valve for residents to vent complaints, to let the board know how their decisions affect ordinary residents, or to offer residents the opportunity to input into board decision-making. But public comment, as it is now configured, cannot do any of those things, in large part because comments are not responded to by the board. This rule averts the possibility of argument, but it also leaves residents feeling that they have not been heard, and misrepresentations or misunderstandings go uncorrected. If every public commenter was responded to by the board, these meetings would last days instead of hours. But I believe that the weight of public comment can and should be addressed during board debate. If board members refer to public comments during debate, residents might feel respected, that what they think and say matters to those they elected. But let us use the example of the May 11 vote in favor of hiring a new township manager to see what happens instead. At that meeting, 16 public comments touched upon the administrative models, 3 in favor of hiring a new manager, 13 either opposed a manager or requested a more complete discussion of the issues at hand. With only 23% of the commenters in favor, the board voted 5-2 in favor of the manager model. And since no one addressed the concerns raised during public comment, the vote came as a slap in the face to the 77% of residents who had spoken on the other side of the issue. The public comment portion of these meetings is frustrating residents to an alarming degree. Over the past few months, I have heard the public using extreme language such as livid, misled, and bamboozled, because you keep asking for public comment, for public input, and then you appear to ignore the public input you get. Obviously, something has gone wrong with public comment. I think you should ask yourselves, why are you asking for public comment? If the time for discussing important issues is so brief that points raised by residents cannot be incorporated into board deliberations before voting, then perhaps what is needed is a longer period of public debate, especially when large numbers of the public have expressed interest. If there isn't time in the world to debate every argument against a position board members believe they must take, there must be time to explain why you are taking a position so obviously at odds with the majority of the
30 seconds.
opinion of the public opinion expressed. I want this board to succeed. When public comment is not only solicited, but responded to and taken into consideration, I believe your chances for success will be greatly improved. Please consider revising the rules governing public comment immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next up is Michelle Cody. Michelle?
Good evening. Thank you.
Hi.
I am speaking really to support all the prior public commentary that, in particular, the last speaker took the words really right out of my mouth. It seems like there is not a democracy here. There is a dictatorship. And it seems that there is not open discussion. There is rushing through items that it's been discussed over and over again about township. The board of trustees are elected to vote on things. It should not be an autocracy where there is one individual that supersedes. So the models that have been presented certainly are not what the township has wanted. And I support the fact that the individuals who have spoken far more articulately than myself and have addressed it, in particular David Reed and others who spoke tonight, please listen. Please slow down. And I'm appalled and I'm very disappointed. So I would, and I see the facial expressions on people who are range from disgust to impatience to, so at least put on the mask. I would appreciate that. It's a level of respect that individuals in this township, and I've lived here, as I've said before, over 35 years. I'm left speechless. I'm sorry, but thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Michelle. I see no more interested public. Oh, and a hand goes up. Jonathan Greenberg. Jonathan?
My apologies. I thought my hand was up, but you know, that happens. You think you got it up and it's not. All right. So my name is Jonathan Greenberg. I live at 6250 Park Road, 32-year resident. I remember Zeben Jackson as a four-way stop sign, as well as baling hay and chatting with my neighbor, Carl Holtz, as he told me stories of his farm on Park Road, where he moved in 1912 after his father and his uncle died in the pandemic, and his mom moved in with his aunt. I also run a small furniture business here as well, and I'm kind of dug in. I'm requesting 5 minutes as a representative of the Park Road Coalition for Transparency in Government. I want to share my observations tonight because I think we've come to a crossroads in Scio Township. Clearly, David Reed knows a lot, has done a lot, and has made his feelings known. If that doesn't create concern in our community, we're not paying attention. I may not be as polite as some of the other folks here, and I want to communicate my disgust, my sadness, and my impatience with the lack of transparency, the looks, the comments, the snarky remarks, the misogyny, and many of the other disgusting things I've seen under the leadership of Will Hathaway. But before I talk about that, I want to first reach out to Donna Palmer out of concern. Donna, I watch you week after week, speaking with derision and anger in your voice. I feel your frustration. I don't know what's in your heart, but I hear what comes out of your mouth. If you find this process of citizen involvement so distasteful, it may be time for you to consider leaving public service for your own sanity. please take care of yourself. I'm concerned for Scio Township. Our leaders came into office and took a 90-degree turn on their campaign promises. Will Hathaway ran on a platform of positive goals and moving us forward. And while I didn't vote for him, I'd hoped our community would benefit because Will seemed like a nice, calm, reasonable gentleman. It seemed we may have some differences of opinion, but he would listen, and the board was, for the first time, going to act transparently to the citizens of Scio. Sadly, that's not been the case. Be clear, the management model that has been proposed is a power grab. The end result for us will be a supervisor with all the power and no responsibility. The supervisor will hire a full-time administrator who's in charge of everything and assumes responsibility and control from board members who have opposed Will's plans. He is trying to remove power from those who make his life difficult and place it in an administrator so he can sit behind a desk, meet and greet all day, and then if anything goes wrong, he can blame and fire the administrator, just like we've seen over the last decade. All the power, none of the responsibility. And when you look at what's left, this plan will allow Will to sit around, maybe he'll start coming to the office soon, and sit in the office with all the authority and none of the responsibility. He also wants to double his salary to 6 figures, and he's only been on the job for 6 months. Where was that in the campaign? We don't need a king. We need someone to listen to the residents and work for the benefit of the residents, not just the ones who are friends and have money and influence. This is not what local government looks like. Haven't we had enough of this kind of politics over the last few years? I implore you, Will Hathaway of Scio Township, first king of Scio, protectorate of 6-digit salaries, father of duplicity and the wrecker of pristine land and breaker of polite company, please back down, listen to your residents, stop acting like you own this place. Thank you.
Okay. No more public comment. Will?
Okay, moving on, we have reports. The first item is G1. This is the utility director's report.
Great, Steve, I'm bringing you in. And I'm turning on your video. Steve?
I'm trying.
There you go. Hey, Steve.
All right. Hey, good evening, everyone. Well, you all know it is construction season, so our crew is spending a fair amount of time out locating and marking the water and sewer lines so the various projects can continue. They're doing a great job getting out early in the morning and marking these lines. Speaking of construction season, I did a tally earlier today, and I was looking at how many water and sewer connections we've had. And in the last fiscal year, we had 124 water and sewer connections, and that totaled $1,422,512. Of this, $764,059 goes to the city of Ann Arbor, and $658,453 goes to Scio. Current fiscal year, since April 1, we've had 21 connections totaling $181,164. So the vast majority of these are in the 2 subdivisions of Trailwoods and Scioview. So it's a good thing to see progress. We do have some funds coming in. On a different issue, we continue to work with the Woodhill Group. There are consultants to look at our utility department billing and operations. They're doing a great job. They're looking at our BS&A software. That's our business enterprise software. So they're looking for opportunities for improvement in that. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with Colleen of the Woodhill Group to review and assess our current fee structure, especially for specialized services such as water turn on and off, hydrant meter, backflow prevention rental, and after-hour call-out fees. Soon, Woodhill Group will be performing a rate study also to assess our present rates and prepare for our future needs. We will bring that to the board in late June or July for consideration and hopefully approval. And once approved, if approved or amended, we'll perform a comprehensive overhaul of the Utilities Department webpage provide as much information as possible to our customers. We get a lot of phone calls and we'd like to have more information online available. People can still call, of course, but we want to make that information more accessible for people just to look around online. On a different issue, the Liberty Road water main project is drawing near. It's a big project. Orchard Hills and McClimate, our consulting engineers, are doing a great job getting it organized. A pre-bid meeting was held on May the 13th. The bid opening is scheduled for June the 2nd at 2 p.m. We're still working on finalizing a couple of easement issues on Liberty Road, but that should not significantly impact the cost of the project. We're also working with OHM, Orchard Hills and McClimate, in performing a vulnerability self-assessment of our drinking water system. This work is required by the American Water Infrastructure Act of 2018, and we're required to complete it by June 30th of 2021. We're hoping to have that done in the next week or so. What we're looking at is vulnerabilities in our drinking water system from natural disasters, terrorism, sabotage, and also cybersecurity. So we're doing a comprehensive evaluation of that, and similarly, we'll do that for our water or our wastewater assets. So that's going well. Once this is complete, we'll update our emergency response plan to make sure we include any of the recommendations into that plan. And that's my update. I'm ready to answer some questions.
Any questions for Steve? Clerk Flintoft, excuse me.
Sure, Steve. So would you expect the Liberty water main to be at our next meeting or June 22nd?
You know, that would be a question for Orchard Hills and McClimate. One of the things they do once they get the bids, they do a comprehensive review to make sure all of the requirements in the bid are addressed in in those submittals. So I would leave that to OHM for communication.
Oh, and Matt Parks. Yes, Matt.
Hey, Jessica. Hey, board. Yeah, June 22nd is the planned recommendation. So as soon as we open bids on the 2nd, we're going to evaluate those. We're going to need probably a week to vet that and pull the bid tab together, review the packets, because we asked for quite extensive submittals as far as experience and resumes and other things. So the plan would be to have a recommendation to you as well as the construction services proposal for our firm to oversee the project on the 22nd.
Thank you.
Are there further questions? Oh, Trustee Jerome.
Trying to kill two birds with one stone because it's related to the budget. But Steve, who controls the KBK landscaping contract for the Jackson Road Boulevard? Is that administered by the Utilities Department, or is that administered by the DDA?
Yes, I believe it's administered by the Utilities Department, and I believe this is the last year of the contract. It's a 3-year contract that began in 2018, I believe.
All right. I was concerned with the $10,000 payment, which I understand is probably contractual, but some of the deficiencies that are found along the Jackson Road Boulevard that I feel should be addressed by KBK and or the township. So I just wanted that point of clarity, and perhaps we can have an offline conversation with regards to that.
Absolutely, and I would appreciate any of your comments. If you could submit them to me in writing, I would like to have that conversation with KBK.
Oh, great. Awesome.
There are some dead trees and there's some mulch that needs to be addressed. And yeah, so I would appreciate any of your comments.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Steve? Thanks, Steve.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Steve.
Okay, the next, let's see here. Lost track of my. We have these in order. My next
Yeah.
supervisor's
report.
Okay, all right. I was looking for a list, I didn't find it. Okay, well, I tried to provide some information on various topics people had asked about in terms of my report in writing. And I don't want to sort of be redundant with what's there. There are some questions that have come up that people just raised in public comments in terms of the Park Road SAD. Because of the number of recipients of the mailing, we did not handle the mailing in-house. We had it done by a local printing firm, the same one that handles the newsletter. And they combined both the printing and the mailing functions. So I cannot with precision say what day the letters actually were mailed, but I know that they were going out. I think they had gone out a week from tomorrow. So that was like last Wednesday. I know
That's
that,
about right.
yeah, I think they were already going out at that point. So I'm a little troubled to hear that people, potential recipients, still haven't received them. That certainly, we thought we had allowed enough time for them to be in people's hands by this point. So I'm not sure what the cause of that delay is. But the intent of the meeting on June 1st is to have an informational session where members of the public can ask questions and everyone can sort of hear the answers together. So I hope that the mailing will arrive and people will come. If people have specific questions about the Park Road SAD that they would like to have addressed at that public meeting on the 1st, you can send them to me. I think the letter encourages that, but I'm making another plea if people have questions to let us know in advance, and that way we can have better prepared responses. The Park Road SAD is not something that originated recently. This is an idea that has been in the works for a long, long time. This is one of the category of roads that was intended to be dealt with by the township-wide road SAD that was approved almost, a decade ago. The idea of improving the dirt roads, particularly those that receive a lot of traffic, is something that the township sought to address at that time. And, they've been working their way through, the township has been working its way through a list and has made a lot of progress since that township-wide SAD. But the reason for that township-wide SAD and the reason for local neighborhood SADs is that there is no real funding for roads in Michigan. We have a really underfunded infrastructure system. And this is one of the few mechanisms that the state in its wisdom has allowed for local governments to use as a means of maintaining roads. It's imperfect, but it is what it is. It is, what we have to work with. And in this particular instance, there's a chance, because of a development that is underway at the intersection of Stabler and Park, called Trail Woods, to sort of partner, or in a sense, with that development. That development, as part of its agreement with the Washtenaw County Road Commission and the township, is committed to paving a portion of the unpaved road, the Stabler and Park, and to building a pedestrian pathway, sort of a network within its development. And this affords the township an opportunity to connect with the portion of the road that the developer is going to be paving. that I understand will be occurring this construction season. Now, whether the township, can pull together a proposal that people support, that's a good question. It's an even bigger question of whether we could do it in that time frame. It's more likely that if the township is to proceed, that it would occur probably in 2022 as sort of a second phase of this overall paving project. But the benefit the idea for an SAD is that the benefit would flow first and foremost to the people who are adjacent to where the improvement is occurring. That's how most SADs work. The people who benefit the most are the people who are in closest proximity. But if we don't do this, then we're going to be faced with a situation that people should think about, and that is you're going to have approximately 300 plus new dwellings in the Trailwoods subdivision who will be driving on Park Road between their neighborhood and Zeeb Road. That's a lot of traffic in addition to the current traffic. So there's a kind of a traffic load to be considered, but I think also there's a potential for benefits in terms of both pedestrian connectivity and in terms of the road itself and the problems with dust, problems with maintenance, problems with safety. Our fire chief has pointed out that it's much safer for the fire department to get to emergencies on paved roads than on unpaved roads. So there's a lot of potential benefits for the township in this this possible project. And I don't want to go on and on about it, but we'll have an opportunity to talk and to respond to questions and to hear comments from the public at the meeting on June 1st. So I encourage people who are interested in that to come. And if you live in any of those neighborhoods that are near to this section of Park Road, I in particular encourage you to participate in that opportunity for dialogue. The next item on my report is.
Could I just ask a quick question about the SAD?
Sure.
And I want to thank you also for reinvigorating the roads committee, which I think is critical. I wonder, since we're at the beginning of this process and it may go into 22, is there any reason why this might not wind up being a resident initiated SAD?
Well,
why it couldn't be? Why would it have to be a township initiated one? Just because it would always be my preference for it to be resident initiated.
Do we have someone who's unmuted? I'm hearing a lot of background.
I'll check. Yep. Sorry.
We talked about this briefly the other day, Jessica. There's a difference in scale between this particular project and the kind of neighborhood SADs that are generated or instigated with a petition drive in a neighborhood. This is not conducive. This scale of this project is not conducive to, it's not really appropriate for a neighborhood-led SAD.
Gotcha.
But the process does follow some of the same steps. And so there is an opportunity for public hearings before the setting of the roll and so on. But for us to wait for a neighborhood to initiate a project of this scale and to rely on neighbors to sort of do the legwork of it it's just not it doesn't match up. And then I should add as well that this is not a unique thing. The township has had township initiated SADs in the past. Trustee Knol.
Following up on Jessica's question, I'm wondering, the township board hasn't discussed this issue of a township initiated SAD on Park Road. So it sounds like there've been a significant amount of decisions made along these lines without there having been a board directive to pursue this. So I know back in April, you said we were going to have a special meeting to discuss this, but that has not happened. And I know we're going to have this public meeting, and some of our discussion can take place at the public meeting. But I think that there needed to have been more board discussion so that we would have the opportunity to deliberate, ask questions. It also seems like some of these plans are fairly advanced. We've got some engineering plans here, some conceptual ideas, and we weren't aware of this as a group.
Well, I can respond to several parts of what you're saying. So I went back and looked at my report from the meeting that you're talking about, and I can see where you might have gotten confused because I referred in my, well, I have it in I wrote it down, so it's in front of me. So I did talk about a series of special meetings, and then I segued into the topics, and I talked about this topic, and it may have seemed as if I was talking about a special board meeting, but what I was talking about in terms of special meeting on this topic is this public meeting. So this public meeting is meant to be sort of an opportunity to sort of talk about this before we get to a Board of Trustee decision, to sort of test the water, to get public input, to talk through some of the questions, to see what kinds of concerns people in the neighborhoods have, the adjacent neighborhoods. So it's not, I understand your concern, but there's plenty of opportunity for the Board of Trustees to have deliberation, and nothing is going to proceed without a Board of Trustee vote. So this is kind of in some ways a pre-Board of Trustee public meeting on a possible project that the board may or may not go forward with, just like all of our SADs. Even the ones that start with neighbors, talking to neighbors. I mean, in some ways it's a similar sort of dynamic. There's an idea, there's an effort to sort of gauge the support for it, and then it comes to the Board of Trustees, and it's only at that point that the Board of Trustees as a board sort of engages with it.
Have you engaged with any of the HOAs from the neighborhoods that would be involved?
This is something that's been talked about for many, many years. I haven't personally talked with HOAs. I know that at some point, Lou Kidder, who is a longtime volunteer leader for Scio Township on road SADs, did talk with folks at Arbor Point. And I think there was a discussion with somebody, a leader of HOA in Country French Estates, but I can't attest to that for sure. So there's been some conversations over the years, but this meeting on June 1st is an attempt to try and get everybody together in the same space, so to speak, virtually, and hear people's concerns together and respond to questions together, so that everyone's sort of hearing the same thing at the same time. Are there more questions about that particular aspect of my report? The other item.
5 meetings in June. That's all I wanted to say.
I know. It's going to be a busy month. The next item on my report, Clerk Flintoft already alluded to, and that is the revitalization of the roads committee. This is a body that was created actually, I think, during the Board of Trustees on which Trustee Knol first served. back in 2006, I believe. The Roads Committee, so it's a committee that was around for a long, long time. And in recent years, there's been some attrition. And so we're it's one of those committees that needs revitalization. And so I plan to bring back the charge for the Roads Committee and make some appointments to sort of get that reconstituted so that we have a body that can sort of function as a committee instead of the sort of loose group of volunteers that we have sort of standing in for it right now. Oops, my computer has gone to sleep mode. The next item is the administrative structure, township administrator. There were also many comments about that earlier. And of course, at the May 11th meeting, I understand there are, strong differences of opinion about this particular decision. And I'm particularly saddened by David Reed's resignation letter. I responded to him in a letter back, but I am hopeful that with some time that we can sort of mend the feeling of disaffection that David feels at this point is expressed in his resignation letter. And that we'll be able to work together again in the future. I have tremendous respect for David, and I hope that it's possible for all of us to disagree about something like this, which is really a disagreement about a substantive issue, a decision, without it becoming sort of personalized. And I hear that in a lot of the comments. I hear that people are feeling this personally and viewing it as a personal sort of thing. To me, it is a fairly detached kind of decision about how we think we want to structure the administration of the township. It's not about personalities. It's about what we, after weighing things, decide is the best way to structure the township's administration. And so I hope that we can disagree about that and move on and move forward, and that people won't feel as if they've somehow been treated badly as a result of that decision. We will be moving forward with it. I have been, based on the motion that was made on May 11th, I've been evaluating different search firms, and I've narrowed it down to one that I think will give the township a very good process that will allow for opportunities for input, both from the public and from staff at the township, and as well, of course, as the Board of Trustees. So that will be coming forward soon. We've got a number of other searches that are in the offing. There's one that's underway for an assessor to replace our long-serving assessor, Jim Murdy, who is retiring. And that is also underway. So there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of changes going on at the township, and we're sort of juggling a lot of different things right now. And I hope that people will bear with us as we work on many different fronts, on a lot of different changes, and give all of us, each of us, that we give each other the benefit of the doubt that we're doing this, we're doing what we do and making the decisions that we make with the best interests of the township at heart. I think that's crucial, that we all sort of treat each other with respect and assume that that is the motive that is driving the way that we're going forward. And with that, I will turn it over to the next report. Who is whom? I'm not sure. I don't have a list in front of me. Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee Knol.
Okay, I do have a question though, this outstanding question about these meetings that you've scheduled for June that we're just learning about, and I've told you I've got conflicts for 2 of them. How are we going to handle that as a group?
Well, so you and I don't know if you want to have this conversation right here,
No,
but
we can have it later. We can
Okay.
have it later.
I
But
was
I'd
gonna
like
say,
to
you
know.
and I talk about it, and I'll work with you, and we'll try and figure out a way that we can make it possible for everyone to attend the special meetings. But it is difficult to find a time that works perfectly for everybody. So there
You
may
didn't ask.
well, it may be that that we have to shift some things around. I don't know, but we'll work on that. There are often meetings scheduled at the township that people are asked to attend, and they aren't consulted in advance. So this is not an anomaly. But I do want to work with you, Trustee Knol, and so we'll talk outside of this meeting.
Okay.
Who's next for reports?
Yeah, the next up is Gelman, and Will, I had the DDA on here, but I think that was an error from last time because you didn't just have a meeting.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, Gelman.
Okay, so we have a court hearing on Thursday, this Thursday, May 27th. This is to resolve the disputed order from the last hearing. The interveners and Gelman cannot agree on the wording for the court order. So we're going to have another hearing and go through the details. We have the transcript from the prior hearing. All of the briefs have been filed. It is at 9 a.m. on Thursday. And that's the news. We have a card meeting next Tuesday at 10 a.m. It is the quarterly meeting with card members and Eagle. That's it.
Clerk's report followed by oh, sorry, Will.
I'm sorry, I found the list. I was just going to say it's the clerk's report is next.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, briefly, I just want to acknowledge David's letter. I want to acknowledge this is a tough time, and I know we're all feeling really bad right now. It's been, very shaking to kind of go through this together, and I trust that we'll figure out how to come out of this better. But I do want, people to know I'm very concerned about this township. Again, I've talked about ethics and things. I know I've done long, boring PowerPoints about local democracy, but this is why all that stuff is really, really, really important. The issue at hand that I'm so troubled by isn't the motion that 5 of you voted for 2 weeks ago. It's not about models. It's about the lack of deliberation, and it's really about some of the there wasn't honest dealings going on, and it broke things down. And with the vague motion that 5 voted for, a lot of the conversations have been punted to a future date, and we will have those hard conversations. But we need to have them, and it was very difficult to have them. And I think that's some of the frustration that David had. A majority of us were part of that committee. I want to remind you. And I just want to acknowledge David. I know you're probably feeling terrible too. And I know that also before your letter, David, I saw you taking every single approach you could. You're a kind person. You're a thoughtful person. You took private approaches, you took polite approaches, you took every approach anybody would want you to take. And I know that nothing worked. And I know that this was your last option to choose to resign in public protest, that it was your last available option. So I just want to acknowledge that I know you feel bad, and I want to thank you. It's brave, and I'm proud of you for doing the right thing, even when it's really messy. So thank you. That's all.
Next is the treasurer's report.
We are beginning to set up the payment option for our citizens and utilities and taxes for ACH payments, which is, as many of you probably use already, it is free to you. Also, it will not cost the township anything because we now have the volume, and the industry in general has the volume. They refined that process, and it's offered in most every case that we may want to pay our bills in. So just letting the people know that we are going to have this available for the public. And I think they'll all be pleased.
Donna, I think it's great.
Right now.
Thanks for
I'm
your
sorry,
work on
Jessica.
that. I think it's great. Thank you for your work on that.
The next up is the Planning Commission, which would be Trustee Courteau, who's not present. So we won't have her full report, but I can relay that the land use master plan is on its way to the Board of Trustees and will likely be on the agenda for our first meeting in June, and that we're going to take steps to try and make that available to the public and to the members of the Board of Trustees well in advance of that meeting, so that you have plenty of time to look through it. It's a lengthy document, and it has a lot of portent in terms of how the township regulates land use through zoning. The Land Preservation Commission, Alec, Trustee Jerome, would you like to cover that?
Sure, I'll cover two at one time. So Parks and the LPC. The LPC received a new application, which we reviewed this week. We continue to work on our buy, protect, sell policy. We also met with LPAC. I think we reported at the last meeting, and we continue to work on our conversations with LPAC in determining what information they need to make us more successful in our applications to them for additional county funding. From the Parks Initiative, we continue to make some amendments to the Scio Pond nature area, and we're looking forward to removing a rickety old dock and putting in an observation deck and making some modifications, like I mentioned before, to the parking lot. Additionally, we have two interns that have embarked on their nature and evaluation of all the natural features of our parks, and they're well in way, so I want to appreciate their efforts. And then I want to mention one other issue that the LPC and Parks Group are working on, which is a guided, and hopefully this will be in the newsletter, but it will be a guided opportunity to join us at one of our parks by both an LPC and a Parks member at every one of our preserves and parks, so that you can have the opportunity to discuss our plans, our thoughts, and actually take a look at the natural assets that we've been able to protect. As I think we've all identified, the protection of open space and natural features is one of the key elements that we'd like to continue to do in Scio Township. So look forward to a inclusion of that in the next newsletter with regards to opportunities we're trying to do a month is the intention. So that's it.
That's awesome.
Transportation Alternatives Planning Committee, Trustee Vogel.
Sure, can give you a couple quick updates. For the board's approval, Deep Road Phase 3, which will take the pathway to about 1,200 feet north of Miller Road. That construction is actually going to start in early June, go through September. There's a letter that's been sent out to all of the Z Road neighbors on the east and west side. And Matt and the OHM team and I made a video earlier today, basically describing the whole construction process that was referred to in the letter and will now get edited and posted up on the website. And it might be a nice new way for us to share information.
A good idea.
The engineering work continues on phase 4, which will go to Peters Road, hopefully for construction in 22. Early permitting work is underway for phase 5, which is getting across the river and the bridge. And in parallel to all that, we're working hard on funding partners. So all is moving forward on that front. Parkland is also approved by the board that construction will be August and September. And we've got some great conversations with Lakestone Apartments about how to keep the pathway on the west side moving into Scio View. And they have really stepped up and engaged around how we might move the pathway toward Liberty and eventually to the intersection. So all good. I want to say that both TAP and Parks are working on our 5-year plans and the associated budgets that go with them, so that we are leveraging the millage dollars at least 1-to-1, and we are also laying out a spending plan, a priority over the coming near years. We would hope we're going to have a joint working session and then bring that to the board later in the summer. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. And I'm reminded, looking at the meeting packet, that I overlooked something that Jacqueline certainly would have reported on in her planning commission report, and that is the creation of the sustainability task force. There's materials in the packet, so I won't try to repeat everything that's there, but I know that that she would have explained articulately and passionately what this particular new group will be doing. But it is something that the Planning Commission will be launching. Jane, did you have something you want to add?
Right. Yeah, I've talked with Jacqueline. As you know, Jan Culbertson, the chair for the Planning Commission, Jacqueline and myself have been working together on this. And Jacqueline asked Jan and I to cover it as the item it is on the agenda. So we will get into it a little bit.
Well, it's actually, it was moved from the agenda into reports. I'm not sure you saw that transition, but there is an item on the agenda for funding the interns to work on that. But I think that's actually in the consent agenda. So if there's something that you wanted to add at this point, this would be the point at which to do it.
I'm sorry, just a point of information. There is in the reports section, Will, the recommendation, the full paper.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you feel that there's something in addition to the written materials that are provided that you wanted to add.
Good.
Okay. All right. In that case, Trustee Jerome.
Just want to make one comment, and Jane, if you could note this for Jan and Jacqueline, I would highly encourage the inclusion of a purchasing agent in your description for the sustainability effort, since they're the first line of recognizing when a purchase could be green or not be green. And I found that to be very effective in our efforts at my place of employment. So I would encourage you for inclusion of a purchasing agent. They're a good first line of defense in the event that something's going forward. Just a comment.
Good. Thank you. Very helpful. We'll follow up offline. I will say, Will, I think it was very wise of you to place this initiative in the Planning Commission, because part of the update that the master plan is going through right now will include a sustainability overlay. And that just opens all sorts of important doors in terms of zoning ordinances, the levers we have to try to build and strengthen a sustainable future. the task force will be really valuable, and these 2 summer interns are going to get a whole lot of groundwork laid for us, which is going to be just great, because there are great efforts in the region: Ann Arbor, U of M, Pittsfield Township, Washtenaw County, Ann Arbor Township. Everyone's in the game right now, and the synergy that we can build on is very powerful. So right time, right place, and good thing.
Okay. Well, that concludes the reports. The next item is the consent agenda, and we removed multiple items from this. So we now have, I think it still includes H3, H4, and H5. Is that correct?
And H6.
I thought H6 was removed.
It was.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, H6 was removed. So H3, H4, and H5.
So those items are still in there, and so I was just scrolling through to make sure I'm looking at the right things. Okay.
I'd make the motion to support the approval of this consent agenda if there's no further discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Jerome, and we have support by, I missed, right, by Flintoft. Is there further comment? Please call the roll.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoft, yes. Courteau. Oh, sorry. Jerome,
Yes.
Knol,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, that moves us to unfinished business, and the first item is I2, possible action on the fireworks permit application for Heron Farm at 6620 Dexter Ann Arbor Road. And before we launch into a discussion of that, I just want to say that as far as I know, there is no connection between the fireworks displays at this location and the application for approval for a venue for I guess a wine tasting event space in the barn.
Will, did you want me to bring Julie Nixon or anyone in?
Is Julie Nixon present?
Yes,
Oh, yeah, sure.
I think she's here to speak. And I'll just remind the public as well that we heard this item back in April and have brought it back, and it comes with a complete report from our fire chief who covers the fire safety. Hi, Julie.
Hi, good evening, all.
So
I believe Brian's on here too, if you want to him.
Okay.
So this is coming back like the Loch Alpine fireworks permit request that we reconsidered at the last meeting because of changes in the state's policy in terms of public gatherings. So that's the reason that we're reconsidering this permit application. Before comments, Trustee Jerome, did you have a question or a comment?
I was just going to ask Ms. Nixon and or the applicant if they could address the question that Mrs. Streeter provided with regards to the actual location of where the fireworks are going to be issued from, so that there was clarity in terms of that comment by the public.
I'd be happy to, and Julie, maybe you can add on. I did a quick check using Map Washtenaw, and it looks like the commenter is about 950 feet away from the location where we would shoot the fireworks. We've done this for several years. We usually post on Facebook Friends of Dexter asking for comments from neighbors We didn't do that this year just because of the fragmented nature of the meetings and not knowing what was going to happen with COVID. But we've always had overwhelmingly positive comments about neighbors who were able to watch it. I had never heard that comment before from a neighbor. We would be happy to come clean up our yard if there was any debris there. We don't see debris in our yard, especially not at the property lines or anywhere near there. So we weren't aware that was a concern, but we would be happy to do what we can. We also will have the fire department involved as we have in the past. So that's probably all I can say. Hey, Julie, I don't know if you want to add anything.
We've included, and I believe it was in the packet from the April meeting, a site plan of the shoot site, so that can be reviewed. And we have the Scio Township Fire Department come out and review that we're following the plan. So, and they're on site during the shoot. So if there is any issues, we can take care of them right away.
Great, thank you for that. And maybe it could be a simple conversation with the individual in making sure that their concerns are addressed with regards to debris on their field. So thank you for that.
Yep.
Are there, there's another question. Trustee Knol.
So what I thought that Ms. Streeter said had to do with sparks and a fire hazard. It wasn't just debris. And I would like to be sure someone has dialogue with the fire chief and communicates that to him. And
The fire chief is right here listening right now.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay. Well, could you come on for a minute, Andy?
Here he is. That's the creepy thing about having 50 people not on video, right?
It's like, I'm sorry.
No problem. Part of your comments were cut off there in the transition from observer to panelist, but we did review the plan, the applicant and in their plan, they meet all the fire code requirements. And as they indicated, we'll have someone on site and able, if there is an issue, to address it. So we're pretty comfortable with that. On this type of thing, we like to be out there making sure that everybody's following the rules and everybody stays safe.
Okay, and I'm glad that people are going to be there. Just if indeed it sparks falling on dry grass, is there any risk with that?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Anytime that, we have open fields like the Herons do, and there's a fire risk there. But this time of year, I don't expect the grass to be too dry. We're getting pretty much towards the end of grass fire season. And again, we'll have an engine on the scene there with some sort of firefighting capabilities so that, were anything to happen in any malfunctions in the actual fireworks themselves or whatever, we'll be able to take action right away.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there other questions or comments from members of the Board of Trustees? Are there members of the public who haven't spoken on this issue who would like to speak?
I see two hands. The first is Paula G. and the next is Daryl DePastel. Paula?
I was just, if you can hear me, I'm at 11 Arbor Point, and I've been doing some walking around recently, just, and I know there was an HOA meeting, I think it was the last month, 3rd, and I did not attend that, and it was quite heated about Park Road being paved, even though Supervisor Hathaway says, well, this has been in the plans for a long time. But I think a lot of the concern is well, we're going to be putting the Washtenaw County Road Commission. We're going to have
Paula, if I could interrupt, this is the time to speak on the fireworks permit application for Heron Farm.
Well, I'm concerned for people. I thought we were for open discussion.
There'll be time for that later.
Okay, well then I'll wait for then, but I understand the person's concern for fire hazard and also for just the amount of traffic that fireworks create.
Yeah.
So I feel for that person and in that area.
Thank you,
So
Paula.
I'll wait for my other comment.
Okay. Daryl DePastel?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Daryl DePestel, 6821 Bridgewood Hills Drive. I live just to the east of Mr. Heron's property, and I've owned the property for 4 years, but I've only lived here for 2, so I can't speak to the past events. I don't have any opposition to the fireworks display. I think it's a great opportunity to celebrate the nation's independence. My only question is, I was wondering if it's open to the public. Mainly just because if you look at the map there on page 2, you'll see Bridgewood Hills Drive is basically the Bridgewood Hills subdivision. On that particular map, it looks like it's a few years old. So there's 4 houses back here now, and by July might have another one breaking ground. And so my concern is, I know there's not going to be any extra sheriff support, but what I don't want to have happen is, our subdivision is a private drive, and what has happened frequently is people come back here in the fall and they hunt. They think it's just a park back here, and they want to do things like that. And so I worry about any overflow parking of people like trying to access this. I mean, if it's open to the public and all the attendees plan to park on Mr. Heron's property, then it really won't be a concern of mine. I just want to make sure that, we're not going to get, people coming from far away who want to see the display, parking sort of like adjacent streets and neighborhoods here. That's all. Thank you.
Next up is Andrea Streeter. Andrea?
Let me
Hi, Andrea.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, hi. I appreciate you letting me speak again. Perhaps I should direct this to Mr. Heron. First of all, I do appreciate the fact that all the neighbors have been able to see the beautiful fireworks display. My next question is, and I apologize, perhaps I should have come down to your home and expressed some concern, but I assumed that the next year things would be a little bit different after the first year. And I think you did move it a touch, but I want to assure you that those sparks were live sparks. They were bright sparks falling into the trees, into the lawn, and I was watching them fall across onto Ryan's roof. My next question is this because you did send out some very nice invitations inviting the neighbors to come? I think it was the 2nd or 3rd year. Is this just perhaps a private party? Because you also hear quite a few voices. I noticed there were tents or a tent for the whole day. There were quite a few cars, quite a few participants. Is this a private event, or is this an event that people come and pay to attend?
Is it okay if I respond?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, happy to. So it's a private event. We do, and we have handed out letters to neighbors inviting them. And typically that's probably half of the people who attend. The other half are our friends and family. And sometimes some of my work colleagues come. It's not for profit. It's not for pay. We discussed at one point having one of the years be a fundraiser for Dexter schools, but logistical challenges made that not possible. So there's no commercial aspect of it.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. I see no other interested public.
Okay. I think then we're ready to call the roll on the question. Or actually, wait, we're not. Someone has to make the model motion.
I'll make the motion.
All right, motion by Flintoft. Support?
I'll support.
Support by Palmer. Please call the roll.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoft, yes. Jerome,
Yes.
Knol,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
motion passes. You can come by tomorrow and we'll have the permit ready for you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to new business. First item is J1, possible action rezoning of EWF Solutions. And this is at 7535 Jackson Road. In your packet, in your materials, you'll find a memo from the planning consultant, Carlisle Wortman Associates, with an image showing where this is located. It's near the intersection of Baker and Jackson Roads. I don't know if there's anyone here representing the permit. I mean,
What are their names?
Yes,
Oh, here's your
Jessica,
hand. Hi.
Jared Keim, John Stevens, and I think we have Ryan here as well.
Great.
Yep, Ryan Yapel here as well.
I'll bring you in. Thank you for identifying yourselves.
So if the owners or the applicant would like to make a brief presentation, this is your moment.
Hi, my name is John Stevens. I'm the architect from the McVeigh Group. We're actually right down the road on Jackson Road, so we're a tenant here in Scio Township. The client is EWF Solutions, and I'll let Ryan talk a little bit about his company here in a minute. But basically what we're trying to do is Ryan is a tenant just over on the other side of 94 over in Tech Park West. His company's seen growth the last 3 or 4 years, and he's kind of run out of room in his warehouse space. He's a e-commerce distribution company. And so what we've done with consultation with Doug Luan and Jan Culbertson and the Planning Commission is we've kind of come to some sort of a resolution with the potential site usage. We're hoping to get the site zone C2, which is in approval with or in conjunction with the master plan, so to speak. So, and then within that, we would be seeking a conditional land use to provide the light industrial use for the EWS Solutions. We would also be allowing a C2 out parcel, which would be in line with the PUD directly to the east of us, the Woodview Commons PUD. And so I'll let Ryan kind of introduce his company, and we can take any questions from you guys.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Yapel. I'm the owner of EWF Solutions. We're an e-commerce distribution company. Have been in Scio Township for the last 4.5 years. Been in business for 7. We currently employ 13 people in Tech Park West development, just on the other side of I-94. We're looking to move forward with this development, and hopefully, if you're willing to grant us the permission, move forward and hire additional staff and continue to grow our business. We love doing business in the township. It's given us a lot of growth so far, and we hopefully continue looking forward to being here for several decades to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any further comments from the applicant? Are there any questions from members of the Board of Trustees? Are there any comments from members of the public?
If you're interested to speak, please raise your Zoom hand. I see one. Paula G. Hi, Paula.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about if it's e-commerce, about truck traffic and how that will increase on the roads.
So the site itself, they're a relatively small user. It's classified as light industrial, and generally they have, I think, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 2 to 3 trucks per day maximum. So there's a relatively light truckload, and with relatively few employees there, you won't really see a significant change in the traffic patterns there. Not to mention that their existing facility is only located just down the road. So the trucks that are already going to the facility are already traveling this corridor. So.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paula. Any other interested public? I see none.
In that case, would someone like to make the model motion?
I'll move the model motion.
So moved by Jerome, support by Vogel. Please call a roll.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoft, yes. Jerome,
Yes.
Knol,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
motion passes. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Guys, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next item is J3, possible action authorization to replace the fire department rescue vehicle.
Hey, good evening, board. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you this evening. So currently, we operate a 2009 Chevy Tahoe as a rescue vehicle. This is used primarily for medical emergencies when we're staffed at 4. We do that so so that we still have reserve available personnel to man the engine. When we're at 3 personnel, we do respond with just the engine on medical calls. So probably about 40% of the time this vehicle is in service. Additionally, like tomorrow, we have this vehicle going to Manchester to participate in a drill. This life expectancy of a vehicle of this type is about 10 years. As it gets up in age, these vehicles become less and less reliable. And we have had a handful of issues with this. There was some overloading as our missions changed and equipment's changed. We've added more equipment, which has helped overload the vehicle. Additionally, 60,000 miles on a vehicle might not seem like a lot. However, when you consider how these vehicles are operated, this is probably about a third of, it equates to about 1/3 of the mileage you'd have on your vehicle with the same amount of use. This vehicle starts up when a call comes in. We speed out of the station, get to the call. We have to put the vehicle in park. It needs to stay running because we have our emergency lights on. And we sit on scene for a little while, come back to the station after the call is over, and it shuts off. So the life cycle of these vehicles, as compared to a residential vehicle that you would normally drive, this is much more severe service. In trying to replace this vehicle, we looked at a number of different options. We thought about staying with a similar sized SUV style vehicle, but we were concerned with the overloading abilities that we have today. So we're afraid that we would continue to overload the vehicle, which wears on components more, causes more in repairs. So we looked to a 3/4 ton vehicle. One of the other concerns we have that's addressed by this is we don't have redundancy in towing our air trailer. We have a 10,000 pound air compressor trailer that we use to bring breathing air to fire scenes. Our current rescue vehicle is incapable of towing that, so we rely on our brush truck. Our brush truck is aging as well, so we have concerns with some reliability with that also. We wanted to add redundancy to the system. Another issue that picking a vehicle of this style does address is bringing contaminated equipment back to the fire station. We'd like to put a slide out tray in the bed of this vehicle that would carry, after a fire, we'd be able to roll our hose, put it in the back of that vehicle, all our contaminated fire gear and all our equipment, bring that back out of the passenger compartment of the vehicle, bring it into our decontamination area that we're building and the renovations, and be able to keep our seating areas as clean as possible. This vehicle that we're proposing was through MI Deal or Michigan Deal. That's the state's competitive bidding process. We selected a 3/4 ton vehicle, has the increased capacity that we need for towing as well as cargo space. This vehicle would be a long bed pickup truck. We'd equip it with a slide out in the back, a cap on the back. As our firefighters go on call, we keep our turnout gear in the back. That's the firefighting equipment that they wear. That would keep it protected and also give us space inside the vehicle to keep our medical equipment conditioned and safe. I'm requesting permission tonight to purchase a vehicle up to $37,010. There are 4 long bed pickup trucks that meet the criteria that we selected. One of them with the GMC it had options that we don't need, more creature comforts. So we excluded that one as it was a couple $1,000s more. Looking at dealer modifications of about $1,500, we need to remove some seats, which would involve deactivating some sensors and some seatbelt things that the dealer would need to do so it worked correctly. Emergency lighting, was unsure of exactly how much it would cost to outfit this vehicle, so I put together a specification and sent it off to one vendor. And he brought back a quote of just under $8,000. That component being over $5,000 would be competitively bid, and you'd see a bid back for that component. Lettering of the vehicle, I included in your packet an example of what the vehicle would look like with lettering on the sides reflective. And that's a vendor within the community that could do that for around $4,000. And total $56,010. In the fiscal year ending 2022 budget, we budgeted $56,000 for this purchase. Well, that being said, I'm sure the board's going to have a number of questions, and I'm happy to answer them for you.
Trustee Palmer, Treasurer Palmer.
It's okay. That's all right, Will. Andy, I have always had the philosophy of purchasing locally because those people support all of us. Is this one item which says La Fontaine? Is that still in the running? It's on the top of page 146.
So I'll say I looked, this is bid on a state basis. So the La Fontaine dealer is actually the one in Lansing.
Jeez.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
and I'm going to get them wrong, but one is in Grand Rapids, one is in Lansing, and one is at Woodhaven, and I'm not going to associate them with the brand.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Trustee Jerome.
Under the reduce, reuse, recycle, what is going to be the, are we trading in our existing $60,000 vehicle? What is going to be the disposition of that vehicle? And is going to be used to offset the cost of the new?
So the existing vehicle, we currently don't have a reliable utility vehicle, which we often use when we have to run errands or something like that. This vehicle, the Tahoe that we are taking out of frontline emergency service, we would keep in the fleet as a backup vehicle. My expectation if we were to sell it would only be worth a couple $1,000.
Are there other questions from other members of the Board of Trustees?
If I could offer one more comment, Supervisor Hathaway. Trustee Courteau couldn't be here, and she'd reached out to me about electric vehicles and sustainability. And that is absolutely the direction the department's going to be headed. They're coming out now with fire engines that are electrically powered, that perform much better than our current engines. I think for this purchase, if it was a light use vehicle, absolutely, we'd wait a year and look at, say, Ford's pickup that's coming out because it would meet the needs. But for this purchase, we need a heavier duty vehicle, and I don't think that within the next year or two we'll be able to see that in the marketplace. But absolutely, that's the direction the department's headed.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments from members of the Board of Trustees, or shall we open it up to the public? Public comments?
First up is Jonathan Greenberg. Jonathan?
I fully support the purchase of that $56,000 truck. Might I suggest that you hold a contest to name it? like other municipalities have done in the past, and allow the residents of Scio Township to perhaps have a little bit of fun. I appreciate you considering my suggestion.
That is a great suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any other public comments? I see none. Will?
In that case, would someone like to make the model?
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry, go, Treasurer Palmer.
you know, I'm always the historian. The very first fire truck the department bought was named Evelyn. She was the former treasurer and she worked really, really hard investing, putting interest away so they could buy that truck. So yes, it's not uncommon to name your vehicles.
Okay, would anyone like to make the model motion? Motion by Vogel. Support by Flintoft. Please call the roll.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoft? Yes. Jerome?
Yes.
Knol?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, so item J4, possible action to set a public hearing for June 22nd on proposed ordinance to establish Township Compensation Commission.
No, we deferred this.
Clerk Flintoft, would you like to introduce this?
Sure. What, Jane?
I thought, wasn't this one of the items deferred?
No.
No.
Oh, all right. My apologies.
Yeah. And Jim Fink is here if anybody has any questions for him. We've talked about this for a long time as one of the things we might want to do here in the township, which would be to create a compensation commission. Donna, Will, and Jim and I have all talked about it. You know, as you know, there's 3 different ways townships can set their salaries. The compensation commission is the way that I see more and more townships going toward. In Washtenaw County alone, Pittsfield, Webster, Dexter, Ann Arbor townships all use compensation commissions. And it takes, it's a little cleaner than a township board setting its own salaries. It is, this has been approved by our township attorney. It's pretty straightforward, the language in the ordinance. And so the action tonight would be to set the proposed compensation commission ordinance for a public hearing on June 22nd. And, you know, we can consider at that time to take action or not. Are there questions about how it would work? Everybody read it?
Trustee Knol?
Yeah. So Jessica, you said in your write-up that most of the language is required by statute.
Yes, and I tried to improve it a little bit, and Jim said those were not improvements. And so it's very set forth by statute. One thing I would suggest though is that if Scio Township did decide to go forth with a compensation commission ordinance, that would be enacted and convened. It's in odd years. That's why at the beginning of each odd year, you see so many of these salary studies and things going around. I would recommend if we do go forth with it, that we would perhaps direct such a compensation commission to not only make determinations of the 7 elected officials, but to additionally make recommendations on the compensation for our committee and commission members. As you know, it's been, I think I asked somebody some anecdotally how long it'd been, I think at least a decade since those were looked at in terms of planning commission, ZBA and others. I think that there's kind of a equity question we should look at to make sure that nobody is being kind of priced out of participating in a committee. If a $20 stipend or something like that might make a difference for somebody. So a chance to look at that. The determinations are just that, they're not settled. The Board of Trustees may accept or reject. the determination. But the actual research and determination and basis for it would be set by the commission. And Jim, I would just invite you to chime in if there's anything else you think the board should know.
Do you have any questions?
Trustee Vogel.
So what is the makeup of the commission and who leads it?
So the commission is made up of electors. And so it would be, something if it was set up, it's set forth actually in the ordinance itself. It'd be 5 members who are registered electors. Just like every other appointment, they'd be nominated by the supervisor, approved by the board, and the term of office would be 5 years. So I would imagine, if we were to go forth with this, we would probably set some additional recruitment criteria, such as relevant expertise.
Trustee Vogel, there are a couple of other things. So while they're 5-year appointments, the initial commission has staggered terms. Excuse me, I'm going to mute myself and cough.
Yeah. For 1, 2,
that's
3,
better.
4, 5.
So they have staggered terms so that after the first round, there's someone who is being appointed every year so that there's both continuity and a chance for turnover. And there is one other condition that is important enough to mention just so that we don't have to go back and work through it again later. And that is that no one who is an immediate family member or themselves is a governmental employee is eligible. And so that means no school teachers, no one who works for another level of government, no one who works at the University of Michigan, because the statute does not narrow it down any. And the only other comment I'll make is that every proposed modification that the clerk made to clarify the ordinance that I sent her was a good one. It's just that the statute specifically says the ordinance shall provide this. And so my advice is that we use exactly the statutory language for the ordinance. And then as Trustee or Clerk Flintoft suggested, you can ask the commission to make some other, not determinations, which is what the statutory duties are, but recommendations for stipends for planning commission, TAP, or any other committees for the township.
And they meet no more than 15 days a year, and they must make a determination within 45 of the first meeting. So that's typically why you see so many of the comp studies going on around the beginning of the year. It need not be in the beginning of the year, but it has to be during an odd year. So if we were to move forward, we still would have time to convene in 2021 should we decide to.
Are there further questions at this time? Obviously, if this is approved, then we'll have a public hearing and there'll be more opportunity for discussion. So it's not as if we have to talk this through all the way.
The requested action tonight would just be to set the public hearing for June 22nd.
If there's no further question or comment from the Board of Trustees, are there any comments from members of the public?
Please raise your Zoom hand. I see, one. Jillian Carey? Jillian. Thank you.
No other members of the public?
I see none.
Would someone like to make the model motion?
I will. So move.
Okay, moved by Palmer, support by Jerome. I think that was the order in which people stepped forward.
Go for it.
And
Either way is okay with me.
okay, And so we have the motion. Please call the roll.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoft, yes, Courteau. Sorry, Jerome,
Yes.
Knol,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay. The next item is possible action on the sign moratorium extension. And in this, we don't have to get into a lot of detail. There is in effect right now a sign moratorium that was put in place last fall by the prior Board of Trustees, and it will expire in June, I believe. This would extend that for an additional period of time and allow the township time to finish work on the sign ordinance revision that has been in the works and is coming to Planning Commission, and then it will come to the Board of Trustees. So it's to extend the existing sign moratorium to allow us to finish work on that particular piece of legislation. Are there any questions or comments? Would someone like to make them? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Members of the public?
I see none interested.
Okay.
I'll move the model motion.
Moved by Jerome, support by Vogel. Please call the roll.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoft, yes, Jerome,
Yes.
Knol,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
motion passes.
Next item is the one that was added. This is item J6, possible action discussion of, I'm sorry, I've got the wrong thing in front of me here. Where did I put it? Okay, so what did I call this? The retention of video recordings of Board of Trustees meetings. That's what it is. So the township has been recording its Board of Trustees meetings since we went to the Zoom platform for virtual meetings in March 2020. And we've upgraded the technology of the meeting hall so that we can continue to offer the option of virtual attendance at meetings after we go back to the in-person format. This means that we'll be able to continue making video recordings after we return to in-person meetings. However, we lack a policy on the retention of this video record. And so this sort of came to my attention recently, and I'm offering here a simple model motion. And obviously, since this is added, I'm just going to read the model motion so everyone knows.
Could I just interject one thing, please?
Sure.
The video records are covered under state law, are covered already under the retention schedule, and it would be a misdemeanor for anybody to destroy them, as would any public record. And Jim is still here, but the retention schedule already covers the recordings of public meetings as a permanent record, just as minutes are.
If I could just finish, then we can have discussion.
Okay.
So this is the model motion that I am placing before the Board of Trustees, moved by, supported by, the Scio Township Board of Trustees agrees that all video recordings made by the township of the Board of Trustees meetings will be retained as a public record, and that the township clerk shall make them available via the township website. And this is just a simple motion, simple policy to have in place. We can elaborate on it or remove it, obviously, rescind it at a later date if we choose, but we don't currently have a township policy on this, and that's what this is meant to address. So now, if there are members of the Board of Trustees who would like to speak, Clerk Flintoft.
So it's covered under the retention schedules that we operate by already. It's a permanent record. Jim can weigh in on this. I think that video recordings and audio recordings, the law is kind of catching up to the reality that we have these audio and video recordings, but the understanding of everybody is that it's also a permanent record. And so they are kept permanently. What your motion does, Will, is a little kind of a nasty little thing, Will. Because you said that the clerk would make it a public record, which is different than a permanent record, and the clerk would make it available via the website. So what that does, and I don't know if you wrote that or if somebody else wrote it, but what that does, Will, is by making it a public record, and we were going to go over this on the FOIA, instead of a permanent record, by making it a public record, then that means it has to be immediately available when somebody walks in the door. So maybe you do know that, and maybe that's why you did say the clerk. But I will tell you, it was very strange on Friday, out of nowhere, Will had concerns about the videos. And anytime there are video requests, I email them to people, the power was out, and we give them to people. So the concern about getting them on the website, Christy and I, there's no legal requirement that they be on the website. I have done my best since COVID has hit. I have told Will, I have this ridiculous process I have to go through for each one to get it up there. I wish there were somebody I could delegate this to. Christy and I are on the phone for a second follow-up tomorrow to see if there's a way to automate this. But one, the state law says it's a permanent record. It would be a misdemeanor if anybody destroyed it. Two, to go beyond and say it must be a public record, I think makes additional obligations to the township, particularly when you're talking about a video and what immediate might mean. Is that at 11:29 p.m.? I don't know, Jim. Three, to state that the clerk shall put it on the website. Again, I think that is just a, very small, bizarre thing that we're talking about at 9:24. But I would ask Jim Fink, please provide your advice on the supervisor's proposed resolution. Jim, my question is, does state law already require, is it your understanding that state law already requires that video recordings of public meetings are permanent records? Second question, what is the difference between a permanent record and a public record?
I am not prepared, excuse me. I'm not prepared to answer either of those. I've been looking at the state's record retention schedule since the discussion started. I suspect that the videos that are in the possession of the township are included in some record retention schedule. I'd be surprised if they weren't. And I don't know that there's a difference between the two descriptions that you gave.
And if I could, Jim, it's under series 200. 201, MCL 15.269. And it says that notes and audio or visual recordings of meetings of a township body made for the purpose of transcribing the minutes may be destroyed after the meeting at which the minutes are approved by the public body. So they are actually only, as of the published date, required to be kept up until the minutes are taken. And that was the practice before I got here when the audio recordings were kept. We're in a different era. Everybody expects the video and everybody expects the video to be available forever. So we keep them forever. As you know, the manager used to run the website. Not a great staffing model. Not a great staffing model for the clerk to be in charge of it either. So it's something we are working through. Christy and I are working hard. And I find the proposal from the supervisor unnecessary and just a little weird.
Other members of the Board of Trustees have comments? Trustee Knol.
Yeah, well, could you screen share this wording for the resolution? It wasn't in my packet, or I didn't get anything from you.
He just added it at the top of the agenda.
I know, but
Top of the
you,
agenda. No, I can't. It's not on the same computer that I'm engaging in the meeting on, so I'd have to jump through hoops to get it over here. But I'll read it to you again if you want.
Go ahead, read it again.
Okay, so the motion is the Scio Township Board of Trustees agrees that all video recordings made by the township of the Board of Trustees meetings will be retained as a public record, and that the township clerk shall make them available via the township website.
I don't have a practical way to do that automatically for everybody. This is a technology problem that is being solved. We are not legally required to do it. Anytime anybody asks for a video, I email them the link or provide the flash drive. And it's just, it is unnecessary, and I'm completely opposed to this. It goes beyond state law. It is directive of an administrative duty that the supervisor believes the clerk should spend her time doing, and this is just wholly inappropriate.
Trustee Knol, an additional comment?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. So what prompted putting this on the agenda tonight? Did an issue arise?
So here's,
Why not?
You would like my narrative. The conversation about the missing videos has been going on for some time now. I had a conversation with Clerk Flintoft about this. I don't know.
You mean videos not posted on the website, not missing, to be clear.
Excuse me. The conversation that I've had with Clerk Flintoft has been going on for some time now. I don't know exactly when it began, but it began with people coming to me, residents, saying, I can't find the videos. The videos used to be on the website. Where are they? And so I approached Clerk Flintoft and we talked about it. And she explained, if I remember correctly, that there was some incident that had occurred when she was doing something with the website, and that the videos were somehow accidentally removed from access on the website.
It was when we got our new website, when they migrated over, they're no longer visible.
So that's when it started. And I assumed from that conversation that this was an issue that the clerk was working on, and that, eventually videos would once again be available on the website. And so when people approached me about it, I explained that. I said, this is a glitch, they're going to be back there soon. That's my understanding. It's just a matter of time until they're back. But it didn't happen, and people have continued to approach me. And then I started to hear, some more details about the sort of difficulties that people are having getting access to videos of meetings.
Christy and I respond to them within 4 hours.
I understand. So some of the steps that people have to go through are to have access.
When the power was out on Friday, Alice Owings had to come pick up a flash drive. That is true. When the power is out in all of Township Hall, our email doesn't work. Very true.
In any case, when this happened on Friday, I had quite a lengthy conversation with Clerk Flintoft about the situation, and she explained in more detail some of the technical difficulties of getting the videos up, and the fact that this is something that, while she knows it's something that needs doing, is not top priority. And so she and I did some problem solving conversation about possible finding other people in the township who could assist with this. And I have taken some steps to try and help to, put additional help into this task. This is not some, attempt to sort of like, I don't know how it's being characterized, but this is really a problem that, it's about transparency. It's about requests from residents for access to records.
They are met within 4 hours. Will, this is not a real problem.
Well,
This is, and I will tell you, Jim Murdy came to me today and said, this is bizarre. what is going on? And I said, I don't know. Okay, so Will, please, I make a motion to table this item.
Trustee Jerome had his hand up first.
I would like to seek a compromise in the approach to this. What I would suggest is I would make a motion that there would be no formal disposition of the video and or any recordings that the township has made until we've had an opportunity for our legal counsel to weigh in on the requirements that in regards to it. So in other words, nothing can be disposed of.
Nothing can be
We'll retain
disposed of
everything.
now under state law.
I understand that. For these purposes, I want to make, we state that as part of the motion that nothing could be, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing or agreeing. I'm just saying.
But Alec, to say this, it suggests that these videos are somehow at risk. And it is an attack.
I understand.
I am the custodian of all the records of the township. And for this board to take this moment right here to say, oh, no, state law is not enough.
I don't know what state law, and Jim Fink couldn't speak to state law, so I'm not willing to take your word at it. I don't mean anything bad by
Well,
that.
and what I'm telling you right now, Alec, is these are kept permanently. They're not going anywhere.
So
They're
all
not
I'm
disposed of.
saying is that instead of taking anybody's word for it, I would simply say that we must retain these records until we figure out the disposition of them based on the recommendations of our legal counsel in coordination with state law. That is fine with. I just simply, I can't take your word for it. I can't take Jim's word for it because he didn't have a word for it because he hadn't had time to review it. So I understand that there's complexities with this. I'm just trying to find a way, instead of us circling around on the same subject, that I do think, and I do want Jim's input on this, and I think it would be helpful if we can just simply maintain an understanding for the status quo in terms of where we will retain these. And I understand what state law says that we're supposed to do. We'll confirm that in our motion and simply seek additional legal counsel for the disposition and recording of these recordings. Recordings are recordings, so that's my suggested motion. Those are my comments.
Okay, so that's a comment on the issue, but it's not a motion.
I'm happy to make a motion, but you had a motion on the floor.
You do have a motion on the table. We have a motion.
You would still need to have it seconded.
I'd like to second it, and I have some comments.
Okay, so we have motion by Flintoft to table, support by Knol.
Yes, I've got some comments.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll remind the board that a tabling motion does not have any discussion.
Oh, no discussion. All right.
I did. Okay.
Okay. Can I just clarify which motion is on? Is the motion to seek legal counsel, or is it Jessica's motion to table?
Jessica had made a motion, and it has now been supported. So the motion is to table this item, period. That is the motion. And according to our legal counsel, there's no discussion of this motion to table. So that means also no public comment, I would assume. And so I guess we just call the roll.
I have one question first, please.
A question? Is it okay?
Are we?
That's not
wording. Is it such that it's tabled permanently, or to further discuss in the future?
Good suggestion, Donna. I'd be happy to amend my motion. I will table this until the supervisor returns to the board with a proposal reviewed by our legal counsel. Or anyone.
And if I discuss this with the legal counsel before this meeting, that doesn't count?
I don't know what you've discussed with legal counsel, but but that's very sneaky and cool, Will. So more of your stuff. So look, I am fine to table it. Alec, I'm fine with your motion too. I just think that this ridiculous behavior needs to stop. What I want to be clear about, Alec, is this. I don't want anybody to give the impression, which I think our supervisor is trying to give right now, that I would be committing a crime, okay? And that's not fair. It's not right. It's not, no, I'm not done.
Well, this is commentary on a motion.
And I'm not done.
If you're going to amend your motion, but let's not have more speeches on a motion that has no comment.
So my motion, because of my motion stands to table. It is just a table. Donna, what that means is if somebody else wants to bring it up when they're more prepared, they may do so. If somebody wants to bring it up again, I'm open to looking at these things. It's a gray area of the law. I just want to be clear for the public and for the residents that all of our records are here and that this problem, things are available. I don't have the hours in the day to personally keep our website completely up to date. That is true, Donna. So my motion is to table, but Donna, I would be willing to work with you or anybody else on this issue to clarify it if it needs clarifying. So my motion is to table.
Okay, and that's the reason I asked the question, because I know sometimes you say table and it just stays table forever, or there's other language that should be used. I only ask it.
Yeah, and I hear you, Donna. I think for right now, because I don't know what the next steps are, because this was just introduced at the top of the agenda. So my motion is to table.
Please call the roll.
Hathaway.
No.
Palmer.
Yes.
Flintoft. Yes. Jerome.
No.
Knol.
Yes.
Vogel.
I am abstaining from this.
You can't.
Jane, if I may, and I'll ask for our attorney. I'm sorry, Jane. My understanding of the law is if you have a conflict of interest on the matter, you may state that conflict of interest on the record and we vote on that. But if you don't have a conflict of interest, you are compelled to vote.
Table it.
I'm sorry, Jane?
If table it means a yes, just table this. I am embarrassed. I am embarrassed.
Table means a yes. Motion passes 4-2.
The next item is the item
H1
is
payment of the bills.
Yes, thank you.
Alec, you had a question? And I think Rebecca's still here for you.
Great. Well, one was answered. Chief Hood is still available, and I apologize for not asking earlier. I just want to make sure that the Pfeiffer investigations was with regards to the fire investigation on Jackson Road. Am I to understand that, or is that a different?
That is our that was almost likely, and Andy, I don't see that he's here. Pfeiffer Investigations is used for background investigations for firefighting candidates. Oh, Chief, sorry.
Yeah, hi, I'm here, Trustee Jerome. Yes, before we hire a paid on call or full-time firefighter, we submit them through a background investigation and psychological exam. We have one paid on call firefighter that we've put through this process.
Great, thank you very much. Yep. I have one other question, and I'm going to take a moment to scold myself, but I'm also going to scold all of us. And this will tie into our agenda. Please, if we can present the agenda in a fashion in which we can have time to review it, I would encourage all of us to be able to submit these questions prior to these meetings so that I don't have to review the agenda in two days and try to get all my questions answered. So I apologize. I try to do this quickly. The question I had with regard to the Tremore Ecology on 7970 West Liberty, which said on tap. And I wanted to be clear that that was not a tap initiative. That is with regards to a property that Barry and Jacqueline were looking at, but it wasn't a tap initiative. So I was concerned with the clarification on that in terms of its capture on in the billing.
Yeah.
That was in regard to 7970 property, I believe.
Correct.
Not tap, but that's how Barry had it worded on his invoice. So that's how I put it in the report.
Alec, which line are you on, if I could?
I don't have it up in front of me right now.
No
These are notes I'd made earlier when I was reviewing them last night. Well, can we just make sure that that should be charged to, I'm assuming that's getting charged, and that's what I'm also interested in, to the general fund, because it's not an initiative of any of the TAP parks or LPC at this juncture. It is the disposition of a house that is owned by the township.
Got it.
And so I just wanted to make sure I'm clear on where that's falling. Or if that there should be additional discussion as to how it is classified. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
Alex, that's a really good point. Thank you for raising this. Rebecca or Will, I mean, because I don't know how it's been coded exactly, but I have been thinking about 7970 as a parks project now. But that may be incorrect. So
yeah, I don't think that's accurate. It's divided actually out of the park. It's separate.
Right. It's no longer, it's a separate parcel in and of itself.
Certainly
and maybe
the houses, but the rest of it is parks. The house is general, the rest is parks.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So
I don't know if we could, I'm fine just striking one item and we can clarify that for the next billing. I don't know if that messes up Rebecca. I just simply want to make sure that it's put in and accounted for properly in the proper accounting category.
Rebecca, can we take that one off? I think so. We can just remove that from approval tonight and make sure we get it sorted out, Alec.
There's another way you can do, Jessica, there's another thing we can do is, it is a bill that needs to be paid, but we can hold that until we are comfortable making sure it's properly recorded in the ledger.
That'd be great. I'd support the budget then as with the contingent qualification that it's properly coded prior to submission of payment.
Great. Thank you, Alec.
So are you?
Alec, thank you for noticing that.
So are you making the motion then to approve payment of the bills with that adjustment suggested by Treasurer Palmer?
I would.
Just to hold it out. We'll hold the check until we're all happy.
Right.
Okay.
So so there's, I guess, a modified model motion. Is there support?
Support.
Support. So motion by Jerome, support by Flintoft. Please call the roll on H1.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoft? Yes. Jerome?
Yes.
Knol?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
So item H2 is possible action on the proposed budget amendment regarding the deputy clerk position. Clerk Flintoft, would you like to speak to this particular item?
Sure. I don't know who had questions off the consent agenda. This was, sorry?
I did, go ahead.
Yes. This is a $0 fiscal impact. It is simply when the budget was passed, when the deputy clerk's a part-time job, we're talking about $33,000 a year. When it was, the budget was passed, we had put all of it in 101, 101 in general government instead of splitting it between 101, 262. And because of that, when Mary submitted her timesheet that shows her regular breakdown between spending time on 262 and 101, Sandy was unable to process that because, as you may remember, we adopt our budget by activity when we're talking about the general fund. And so that's that elections, the general government, the clerk. So all this would do is to redistribute those 33,000 in the general fund from the general government activity across general government, clerk, and elections.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, and I guess this is my review of the budget in general. I was surprised, not at the allocation and paying for obviously her efforts on the elections, but since her responsibilities and your responsibilities for the elections are codified in statutes, that it wasn't captured originally. So I guess I was surprised that we were tackling it now to make the amendment to pay her when I thought that would have been included in our original budget proposal. So I just wanted to understand the sequencing.
Historically, 100% of the deputy clerk time was just in general government. And I know that when I was deputy clerk too. And in that general government, that 101, 101 category, this year we're trying to get a more accurate picture by putting things across the activities. So we pulled that out. And in fact, the deputy clerk had some time in elections, but it just hadn't been properly distributed. So
yeah, I'm just surprised we hadn't done it when we did our budget proposal, but I understand and thank you.
Anything else?
So if there are no other comments, would someone like to make the model motion?
And we do have a public comment. I don't know when you want to take
I'm
that.
sorry, because we pulled this out, it's now open to public comment as well.
Okay, one hand, Jonathan Greenberg. Jonathan?
My apologies, it was left up from a previous topic that is not commentable. So I would reduce my hand to a lower status.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on the deputy clerk allocation? Alice Owings. Alice.
Hi there.
Hi.
I guess you guys probably remember I prepared a memo and a spreadsheet that I sent to you before your March 23rd meeting about the budget. My memo and spreadsheet specifically highlighted the lack of funds being dedicated to election matters, among many other issues. Michigan statute says a municipality must pass a budget that includes all amount needed to meet liabilities for the fiscal year in each fund. But as I said then, and it continues, this budget is incomplete, both in total and in funds or activities. This budget amendment is needed to pay the deputy clerk for election matters. No question, you should approve it. But you need to reject the notion that this is an approach that somehow, quote unquote, restores a core governing tool. I think you should strike that from the commentary. I worried the budget you passed would fail to meet the township's needs. Tonight, you have the first three of many entirely avoidable budget amendments that you will have to deal with at these already overloaded and overly emotional meetings. Why am I so frustrated? It's not just because this is a pointless set of problems that could have been solved in March if you, the clerk, and Woodhill had paid attention and fixed the budget before the state deadline. You had time. No, what I'm really frustrated about is that at the last meeting, the clerk claimed the deputy clerk had a problem with her check, which was due to a staff member's possible ethical violation, suggesting a link to the deputy clerk speaking up at meetings. In reality, the clerk asked a staff member to cut a check for money that wasn't in the budget. Simply put, since there was no money for salaries in the election budget, the staff member asked for clarification while not delaying in any way any processing of anyone's check. And now the clerk has done what should have been done at the last meeting and presented a budget amendment. Wouldn't it have been more honest instead of the comments at the last meeting, if she had done that. I just ask you to not normalize this. It is not more transparent, and it's really scary that you have no sense of the actual anticipated expenditures for the fiscal year. They are simply not all in the budget. We need an omnibus budget amendment that shows all the expenses by fund, and we need an honest picture of our fiscal standing so that you are not all raiding our nest egg.
30 seconds.
Thank you, Alice. Any other comments? That's all. Will?
I'll move the model motion.
Moved by Jerome.
Support.
Support by Flintoft. Please call the roll.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoff? Yes. Jerome?
Yes.
Knol?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, that moves us to item H6, I believe.
Yep.
Which is the one that Trustee Knol asked to pull out of the consent agenda. Do you have questions that you would like to ask?
I did have a couple questions. You didn't have invoices or anything in the packet with this. You just had the services agreement. So I wanted to know when the work was done and what was the amount? What are the invoices for both of these?
Well, I thought they were also going to be included in the.
You know, Rebecca is here. I know we got the invoices and we're holding them until we retroactively went back and approved the contracts. So.
Yes, I pulled the invoices. They are not part of the list of bills.
Right,
to be
because
paid.
we had, good. Thank you, Rebecca.
Because they had questions.
So when was the work done?
You mean the exact dates?
Yeah,
Well,
when
it
are the,
it was subsequent to when we took the vote back in February to establish the role, which I confess, and I did so in here, that I misinterpreted as also approving the contracts, which were referenced in the setting of the role, the amounts. And so now Rebecca actually noticed that we had skipped a step. And so that's what we're doing. We're going back and doing what we should have done as a board back in February when we set the roles. We should have had a separate vote at that time to also approve the quotes, I guess, from Washtenaw Engineering for the work that the roles were set to pay for.
what are the amounts?
Well, I think they're in the documents here. I mean, the total amounts for the
These
contract.
invoices. These invoices that.
Yeah, so it's some portion of the work for which the contracts are contracted.
The invoices would come to the board next meeting, Kathy, if we were to approve these contracts tonight.
Okay, this wasn't clear, so. Okay.
Any other questions? Are there comments from members of the public?
I see none.
In that case, please call the roll. Or actually, no, we have to have the motion first, sorry. Would someone like to make the model motion?
So moved.
Moved by Flintoff. Support?
Support.
Support by Jerome. Please call the roll.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoff? Yes. Jerome?
Yes.
Knol?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, that brings us to item H7, which is the Stiltgrass Remediation Services Agreement and authorization. Let's see.
$2,500 already allocated in the current budget, and what is that taking out of what fund?
I'm not sure what fund it was taken out of when we put it in the
I
budget.
guess what I'm asking is it being considered a township nuisance or is a park nuisance?
It's a 101 expense, Will. I don't recall what the activity was, but it's a general fund expense.
General fund? Okay,
Is that the only question?
that's my question.
That's your question. I mean, are there other questions is what I meant to say. Are there comments from members of the public?
I see none.
Okay, would someone like to make the model motion?
So moved.
Moved by Jerome, support by Flintoft. Please call the roll.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoft, yes. Courteau. I'm sorry, Jerome,
Yes.
Knol,
Yes.
Vogel.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And I think that brings us to the end of all of the items that require action. So that brings us to public comment.
Interested members of the public, please raise your hand. First up is Pam Boyd, followed by Paula G. Pam?
Hi, you guys are doing a fine job of getting us out of here at a fairly decent hour. Two comments. 517 Linden Lane. I thought things were getting better on the attacks of Jessica, but I was very disappointed in some people's behavior tonight. I don't always agree with Jessica, but I think respect towards Jessica and the job she does should be better appreciated. All right, so now I've got a question, and if I'm asking this question, maybe somebody else is. Supervisor Hathaway, you talked about the Park Road SAD. I don't have a dog in that fight. But what I'm wondering is, why was it seems to me, why was it just your decision and not the whole board's decision to go forward with the Park Road SAD? I'm kind of missing out why the other board members didn't get to discuss this before the letters were sent out. I've only been going to the township meetings for the last about 2 years, so I'm still a newbie. I don't understand all the ins and outs, but that just seemed to me to be very out of character for previous bot members, that one person makes a decision without the rest of the board when it's such a big thing and involves so many residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Next is Paula G, followed by Jillian Carey. Paula? Paula, would you like to speak? Paula, I'll come back to you. I'd like to move to Jillian Carey. Jillian? Thank you, Jillian. Paula G, do you want to speak now?
Yes, I do.
Hi, Paula.
Hi. Actually, I think that a lot of things are being accomplished by all these discussions, but some of my concerns about the Park Road, besides, it's been floated, I've heard $2,000 per person. It's not even the money of it. So Washington Road Commission is going to be putting in that roundabout over on Liberty and Zeeb. And right now, people have to come down Zeeb. And so I'm glad we have a light there now. It's made it much safer, even though it had been known for years that we needed a light there. But this is going, in my opinion, make this a cut through for everyone coming out of Ann Arbor into Dexter, including possibly trucks, unless there's truck restrictions, to come down and then go down Stabler and then go down Jackson and either get on to 94 there versus so I guess there is a positive to it, but for the residents, and that's what a SAD is about, is how it benefits the residents of the continuous area. And I actually walked around my neighborhood a couple nights, and people have no idea that this is even going on, even though it's been stated this has been in the works for a very long time. And I have a lot of concern about that becoming a major thoroughfare. And, we have a beautiful barn over there, mostly residents. And even though Trailwoods are going to have a big say-so and they're going to pave their area, I wonder about the people buying those homes, which are going to be, who knows what, starting at 500, but now with all the building costs, a massive traffic coming through there so they can bypass that area. And then my only other, so that's, and the fact that these letters never went out, people, some people on the board of our homeowners, I don't know about Country French and others, what they're thinking on the whole thing, but looking over some of the state rules on SADs, and we're considered a PUD here and the homeowners association, and talking to somebody who's on the TAP committee, like, oh, it's so beneficial to us in Arbor Point because people will use our road. Well, we maintain these roads with the shoveling. They need repair themselves. And I go, why are we going to pay to pave this road and put a sidewalk in over there when we have deteriorating roads within our own neighborhoods? I think Country French has some issues with their roads. They put speed bumps in.
30 seconds.
So anyway, that's one of my big concerns. And the other one is I think the Jackson Zeeb area looks like a garbage dump all the time. And all that Myers has are a few tiny little waste baskets. And I think entering the township and seeing all that garbage is very poor. And I thank you for listening to my comments. But these meetings on this right after Memorial Day that people have no idea about is inappropriate.
Thank you, Paula. Next up is Jonathan Greenberg, and I just want to remind Jonathan and all the public to please direct your comments to the board as a whole. Jonathan?
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you for the reminder. So I would like to tell the board that I found the methodology in which we're finding out about this SAD on Park Road, the way we're finding out about it, kind of piecemeal, and yet it seems to be two things at once. It's both been something we were going to do for a long time and something that was just mailed out last week that nobody's seen yet. the meeting being scheduled for the day after a holiday weekend is, just one more gumdrop on the icing on the cake of the lack of transparency and the perception that you're not interested in listening to the public. I wish the board would reconsider the timing of that, as well as the facts around how long has this been going on. I've been living on Park Road in this home for 21 years and down the road for another 12. The last time I talked to somebody in the township, they said, we're never going to pave Park Road. You could forget about selling your land. It's going to remain rural for forever. And I said, okay, maybe. But that's clearly changed, and okay, but it seems to change. It seems to have changed very quickly. And so I would ask the board to reconsider the date of that. And finally, I'd just like to comment on more of the behavior I've seen tonight. The attacks on Jessica, the poking at her with the last minute addition to the agenda. I just, God, I mean, I'm the one who's supposed to be obnoxious and unruly, not you. You're supposed to be the board. You're supposed to set an example for the rest of us. And I'm embarrassed, as Trustee Vogel noted earlier. It was not one of our better moments. And so with that, I would ask the board to consider these pokes and jabs and focus on listening to the residents and what they're trying to tell you. Thank you. Jonathan Greenberg, 6250 Park Road.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any other members of the public wish to speak? We've got two more. I see Alice Owings, followed by Rob Pattinson. Alice?
Thank you.
Sure.
I just wanted to respond to the comment the clerk threw my way on the videos. First off, yes, I have absolutely been able to get videos when I needed them. She and Christy have been responsive. I didn't even know there was a power outage on Friday. I gladly went by with a flash drive, and it was so quick and so seamless that I did it again today, thinking it would be similarly, quick and seamless. They were very busy, and I believe Clerk Flintoft could confirm that I then sent an email apologizing for just stopping by unannounced and sort of giving them yet another thing to do on a busy day. So I would
no
hope
problem.
would
We're
be,
always happy to do that.
but I would hope that my apology would be perhaps somehow mitigating things. But I just think to say it isn't an issue is just wrong. I mean, we have lots of township citizens who are not as comfortable, zooming into Township Hall or reaching out directly. And, the videos were there before. So now that they're missing, it's just kind of this thing. And for those of us who do tend to talk to other groups of people, whether it's our neighbors or emailers or things like that, and those folks are not coming to the meetings, I do think the videos missing are an issue. I also did just look up the statute the clerk read, which says once minutes have been approved, the videos and recordings may be deleted. So if Scio has a different rule or whatever, that's fine. But I mean, that to me sounds concerning, and I don't know. I mean, it says may, it doesn't say you have to. So but I guess my bigger point is that the problem I have, and this is not a personal attack, but it is that the minutes are not very accurate in, how they convey some of the information. You may not like what I say, but I hope you remember that I tried for some time to ask questions during that March 23rd budget meeting of Karen Lancaster of Woodhill. That is simply not in the minutes at all, not mentioned. Ditto, the DDA grant discussion. None of my I'm not even listed as commenting at all. And I think you should care, because at that same budget meeting, Trustee Knol suggested amending the budget, but you guys didn't pick up on it. Go back and look at the video. She says, why don't we just amend the budget? It was on a particular SAD comment. And she also voted against the DDA grant, but without any mention of my comments or anything that gives color to, why there might have been somebody who voted no. I guess I just feel like, you know, let's use the video to improve the books and records or the minutes and records or whatever the records are. I don't know if they're permanent or whatever the right words are. And I find them useful to go back and remind myself about the things. And so, you know, that was just what I hope to convey. Thank you.
Yeah. And just a brief thing, always happy people can email me or Christy or anybody. Typically, we're able to send you links of the video when we can't, you know, flash drive. So thank you. Next up is Rob Pattinson, followed by David Reed. Rob?
Hi, thank you. I had a lot of comments tonight prepared on a lot of the different subjects you've talked about tonight. But one thing that in the first round of comments people talked about was that it is absolutely exhausting to watch this Board of Trustees. There are 50 people in the audience tonight because we don't trust you. And the reason we don't trust you is because you're not working together. And some of you, it feels like, are working against the interests of the township. And as I had all these comments prepared, I thought really it simmers down and summarizes to one comment. And that is that David Reed served this township for years. For him to resign under the conditions he described should panic, literally panic, the trustees. Township Hall is on fire, and it is your duty to pay attention and make sure that the Scio Township that we all know and love is protected. It's frightening that at the March or the May 11th meeting that you didn't pay attention to David Reed's comments that were put directly to you. He was speaking to all of you, and most of you ignored him. And it felt like nothing has changed with this new Board of Trustees. We didn't trust the last board, and it was an absolute mess. And you guys inherited a pile of a mess. And it feels like Scio Township is in grave danger. And like I say, the township is on fire, and it is your duty to work it out. Please reread David's resignation letter. We residents deserve better representation. As Jane Vogel said earlier tonight, she was embarrassed. You should all be embarrassed. We are frightened as you are governing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Next up is David Reed, followed by Pat Stein. David?
David Reed, 713 Merlin Way. I just have to say, tonight's meeting just put the icing on the cake. I referred in my letter to the lack of trust on the board, and tonight's discussion of the video recordings personified that issue. I'd really like to know the motivation behind Supervisor Hathaway's motion. He publicly insinuated that the clerk will not follow state law. He publicly insulted her and challenged her integrity and her honesty. And Trustee Jerome actually vocalized his lack of trust in his clerk. He actually said, I don't trust it. And I just cannot believe that this board is, I don't understand how it can function. It seems like Supervisor Hathaway is spending more time trying to undermine his clerk than trying to heal the differences between and come to work together. I'm flabbergasted at how this board is falling apart. But thank you, Jane, for voting yes on the on tabling this. I know it was difficult for you. Looking at your face, it almost looked like you were torn between doing the right thing and doing what your supervisor wanted you to do, but you did the right thing, and I thank you, Jane. I'm done.
Thank you, David. Next up is Pat Stein. Pat? Sorry, Pat. Pat?
Hi, Pat.
Hi, Pat.
Stein, 1413 South Z Road.
Jessica, I'm sorry for the way you've been treated tonight. You don't deserve it. You're a great leader and we should be very happy to have you.
Thank you.
A little bit of info here. We understand the new supervisor of Sylvan Township found that his duties were just too much for him and he recently just walked off the job. Supervisor Hathaway seems to be so dissatisfied with so many things regarding his job at Scio Township as the supervisor, his duties, his hours, his salary, and even the team he's been elected to serve with. Perhaps it's time for Mr. Hathaway to also consider taking a walk. And that's all I can say on the subject. Good night, all.
Thank you, Pat. Any other members of the public wish to speak? Please raise your hand. I see one more, Michelle Cody. Michelle?
Michelle Cody, 4620 Stein Road. I support what David Reed said in his very eloquent letter. And Jessica, I am very appreciative of you and felt you were maligned unfairly. It does seem that the board came in with one agenda and did do, as some people are saying, a 90-degree turn. And I would think, Mr. Hathaway, you knew you were getting a part-time job at a certain salary and suddenly want to change it. And as many, many people who know far more than I do have pointed out, it's been tried before and it's been a bum rush through now again. And I don't think it's very good to do it during a pandemic when normally we could fill the hall with people who would be interested and want to speak. And it's not transparent. So I appreciate your listening to this. I am appalled. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other interested members of the public?
Well, could I make a quick comment if there's no other public comment? Because I just want to respond to one of the comments from the public. And I want to be very clear. When I was trying to broker a compromise, and what I said was that wasn't just saying that any disservice to the clerk. I was simply saying that I was seeking legal counsel's recommendation rather than any one of us, since we are not legal counsels. So I just want to make sure I clarify that for the public and for Jessica. It was not meant as anything intentional with regards to your capabilities or inferring anything. And I understand why you were speaking up with regards to that, but I never said that. I never implied that. I just simply wanted, because we were ill-prepared to have this conversation, I felt it was best served by legal counsel. And that's why I didn't vote for it as well, because I wanted that clarification that I offered, which was not accepted, which is fine. But I just want to clarify my comments.
Alec, I want to thank you for that. I appreciate that. It's meaningful that you said that to me. It did feel terrible. And I will say, I think when you said the word disposition, which is just the proper word, because, records and retention law is so much part of my job with, everything from, this phone to this scrap of paper, that, it is a crime. And that's part of why I'm so interested in making sure we do the FOIA and public records training for everybody, because I want to make sure that everybody's able to identify what a public record was. So I appreciate it. I agree. A legal opinion would be good. And I just want to reiterate, once again, all of your records here at Scio Township are safe and sound and properly maintained.
Trustee Knol.
Yes, I want to make a few comments here too. I'm appalled by the treatment of Jessica tonight by several board members. She has done an excellent job. I support her fully. I don't always agree with her, but she's a hard worker and she has the best interests of the township at heart. And I'm greatly concerned about some of the, how do I want to say this, dishonest, disingenuous behavior that I've observed. And I think we've got a big issue here, and we can't be ignoring it. We can't make statements like, oh, we'll just work together and we'll do this. We've got some issues here that need to be addressed. And by ignoring them, we're making them worse. By having the vote that we had at our last meeting and essentially no discussion among some of the trustees, I think we did a disservice to the residents in the township. David Reed's resignation letter says it all. And you've heard, I hope all of you have heard, I don't know if you have, but I hope you've heard tonight from a range of different residents expressing concern for the township, support for David Reed, and they're asking all of you to take a look in the mirror, and me too, but I think we've got some major work to do here, and we can't gloss over it.
Other comments from other members of the Board of Trustees, since we're sort of going around? Well, in that case, I will make a comment. I realize that the motion that I put forward to establish policy with regard to our video record, which we don't have, was interpreted as an attack by the clerk on the clerk. I don't know how to, sort of roll that back and say, no, it wasn't really. It's about protecting the record, is about establishing a policy that we lack. And under state law, as the clerk shared with everyone, those videos could be deleted as soon as the minutes of for the meetings of that they're the videos of are approved. There's nothing to restrain anyone from doing that. So it was simply,
just say you're sorry.
Excuse me. It's simply a matter of establishing a policy where we lack one and where state law leaves a gap. That's why I put that forward, and to encourage the placement of the videos back where they were on the website. And I'm sorry it was interpreted as an attack. I don't know what to do about that. But the fact is, we have work to do. It's true. And we have disagreements about how to do it. But there was nothing dishonest, Kathy, about what was done on May 11th. You know that. You've reviewed it. It's a matter of interpretation. You and I talked about this. You look at it and you saw, I'm speaking, excuse me, Trustee Knol, excuse me. I'm speaking. I just want to be clear. When you level accusations like that, that's serious. When you call people dishonest, that's serious. Now, it's your interpretation of what was said on May 11th at that meeting and what was said at the April 27th meeting prior that is at stake here, right? That's what you're basing this on. It's how you viewed what was said and how you interpreted it. It's not dishonest in any way. So please don't use that terminology, because that is quite an accusation to make about your colleague.
Look who's talking.
Well,
okay. I would like to just suggest that, look, I mean, Will thank you for apologizing for the way that I interpreted your actions. We'll work on the apology thing, but thank you for trying to apologize. I will say, you know, all of the clerks writing, all of the clerks listservs, all of us are treating videos as permanent records these days. And when you say something like there's nothing to prevent, you know, I mean, why you didn't talk to me about this and that, you know, we can talk about, you know, incomplete or this or that, but I need honest dealings with you, you know, starting with, I just need honest and fair dealings with the 6 of us. That's what I didn't see in the Township Administration Committee leading up to it. That's what David Reed has been so appalled by. I've been heartbroken. And, you know, starting with when you schedule a special meeting, do like Jack always did. Have Christy find dates. Make sure it works for everybody. You know, we've got kids and lots of things going on in our lives. You can't just call some dates. And when you do something like, we're having a special meeting, I got the email today from you, a special meeting on this big thing or that big thing. I mean, you got to be collaborative. You can't just sit alone and come up with an idea and then try to rally up the votes for it. You know, Jane and Alec and Donna and Kathy and Jackie and we are 7 independent people. And I would just encourage everybody to try to keep some ethical autonomy right now and continue to really check in with themselves to make sure that you're doing the right thing, because we're in turbulent territory. And I trust each of us to do the right thing. But I would suggest we adjourn, because I don't think we're going to get much farther tonight.
We have a motion to adjourn. Please call the roll.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Oh, sorry. Who seconded?
I'll support.
Support. I must have read your mind.
Okay, support by Jerome. Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoft? Yes. Jerome?
Yes.
Knol?
Yes.
Vogel?
You're muted.
I can't hear you, Jane. I'm sorry. Oh. I can't hear you, Jane. I'm sorry.
Give a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
I am trying. Oh, here you are.
Yes, let's adjourn.
Okay. Thank you. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned at 10:30. Thank you.